What does perfect even mean? Is there even such a thing? Ooh, can we switch up all the rules and imagine a utopia? Darling, I'm just so fed up with these expectations. They keep weighing me down. My heart is begging me to get the hell out of my head. I'm gonna live inside the upside down for a minute and pretend, honey, I'm a perfect 10. Whoa, whoa, honey, I'm a perfect 10. Whoa, whoa, and if I say it enough, it gets ingrained in my head, and I start to see, honey, I'm a perfect 10. Honey, I'm a perfect 10. Whoa, honey, I'm a perfect 10. Honey, I'm a, yeah. Yeah, I've discussed it with myself, and I'm disgusted with the way we're told to have a certain face, a certain weight, because we aren't pixels on a screen. No, we're human, we breathe. Every single thing we see curated, it's overrated. These expectations, they keep weighing me down. My heart is begging me to get the hell out of my head. I'm gonna live inside the upside down for a minute and pretend, honey, I'm a perfect 10. Whoa, honey, I'm a perfect 10. Whoa, and if I say it enough, it gets ingrained in my head, and I start to think, honey, I'm a perfect 10. Honey, I'm a perfect 10. Whoa, honey, I'm a perfect 10. Honey, I'm a, yeah. Messing with my head again. You had your heart set on me, but these feels, they come and go, and they come so easily. Tell me what it is about you that I can't forget, but you're breaking down my walls again just to set me free. Why do I, baby, why do I love the way you are, always leave me? Why do I, baby, why do I love the touch but never love the feeling? Why do I, baby, why do I?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to tonight's broadcast here in the LHG Ultimate League. We've got a great matchup for you guys tonight between a Glaive, Esports, Emerald, and Ivy Gaming Black. My name is Gordo, and I am joined tonight by Zymphonic. Zymphonic, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, man. How are you? It's been a heck of a night.
Yeah, it's been a week since we've been here, and a lot has gone down in that past week. But we are right back with some more LHG UL action. We've got the 1-0 Glaive Esports Emerald facing off against the 0-0 Ivy Gaming Black tonight. They've had to reschedule their week 1 game on Ivy Gaming's side, but they are going to be coming in looking to pick up their first win tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, both these teams, like you mentioned, one team actually getting to play a game, one not so much. But they're definitely, I mean, looking to pick up that first win and trying to get in a really good spot in these early weeks and try not to come back and have to go through a gauntlet later on in the play-in rounds.
Yeah, and this is a great matchup we've actually got here tonight. Glaive Esports Emerald, of course, one of the higher rated teams that we have here in the LHG UL. But Ivy Gaming Black, some latecomers to this league, looking at just the ranks of their players and the scores that those would have accumulated for the purposes of the group draft, Ivy Gaming Black would actually be the number 2 scoring team out of all the teams in the LHG UL. So these guys are both some real heavy hitters rank-wise coming on up into this match.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, definitely with this point system, you definitely get to see a couple of potential disparities and a couple of interesting matchups you would see. I mean, definitely looking just off the top of my head, Dim-Witted Baboon. I mean, definitely had some impressive stats last week. I'm sorry, in their first match of the season, and being a Plat 2 ranked player, definitely went up against some of the higher tier top laners last week. So it's definitely interesting. Rank doesn't necessarily mean everything. If you have a strong team with strong communication and strong just overall synergy, I mean, it's definitely shown that some of these players are definitely comfortable playing up against players who are potentially significantly higher than them.
Yeah, and now that we're getting right into this draft, real interested especially in this set pick coming in from Glaive Esports Emerald. I suspect that this is a bit of a flex pick here, definitely something that Dim-Witted Baboon could bring on up here, and also could be flexed down to support, though, something that could potentially farm along with this Senna or fast along with this Senna, but has definitely been picked as a lane duo before.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually having a bit of trouble. I actually don't have the spectate link. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, if it's Senna we're talking about, absolutely. I mean, Senna, one of those champions that has definitely gained popularity, especially with some of the nerfs of some of the more higher picked AD carries, or some of the AD carries that have been nerfed in the past. And we also saw that complemented on the other side, with Jinx, Olaf, Lulu. I mean, they're definitely looking to run in for the side of Ivy Gaming Black and create some space for their carry. And as we kind of go through these bans, we're seeing targeted towards the top lane, a little bit of support as well. Some of those matchups that you don't necessarily want to deal with in the bot lane if you're the side of Ivy Gaming Black. But here, I expect to see likely a mid pick. I mean, a lot of the Orianna being already taken away, one of the safer control mages. But I mean, things like Victor and Syndra are still available. But I mean, same with top. I mean, it really depends. But personally, I always prefer the top line pick, or top counter pick if it's available. So I expect to see some kind of control mage here.
Yeah, that would be the most standard pick coming here for Evan with an eye.
Oh.
But it is going to be the Nautilus locked on in here. So this could potentially signal that it's actually going to be a Lulu in one of the solo lanes. I would expect to see the Nautilus support more so than the Lulu at this point.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have been seeing some of these enchanter supports going into the solo lanes, specific more than anything really top, with the likes of Lulu and Karma taking advantage of that Moonstaff build, along with the new upgrades to Chemtech Putrifier. So yeah, I'm assuming to see that going top, and Glaive Esports is going to respond to that Nautilus with Engage of their own in the Rel. So we're likely going to be seeing the set as well go into a solo lane, likely to match, I guess, in the top lane, potentially matching that Lulu.
Yeah, Dim-Witted Baboon has a lot of set games in solo queue this season so far, so definitely going to be something I'm expecting to see on him, potentially facing off against this Lulu, which might be a bit of a rough matchup for the set. Then we're going to see the last pick here. It is going to be the Cassiopeia coming through for Glaive Esports Emerald, and Kakari been busting out a lot of interesting picks so far in this league. Last week he played, I believe it was Renekton and Fizz, so he's bringing a lot of interesting looks to the mid lane, but going to be going on the Snake Lady this game with the Cassiopeia.
Yeah, and I mean, Ivy Gaming Black can respond with the control mage of their own, the Syndra. In this case, I mean, the lane matchup itself being favored a little bit more towards the Cassiopeia, just because of her, the ability for her to stick onto this control mage like Syndra. If she's able to move around and dodge out on the Scatter of the Weak, it's going to be really hard for Syndra to be able to do anything, and likely not even be able to escape, since the grounding will prevent her from flashing. So it'll be definitely interesting to see that soft counter being picked into. However, I'm confident that if Ivy Gaming Black is wanting to pick Syndra in here, that Evan is going to have something in his back pocket to be able to deal with his Cassiopeia.
Yeah, the Lulu top lane, now that it's pretty much locked on in here, is really going to be quite favorable over for Poke on the side of Ivy Gaming Black, and that's poke the player, not poke the concept. Although it is really coming through on both angles here, as the set just doesn't really have a ton of great ways to close that gap. He's got the movement speed boost coming out of his Q to run up to people and try to get those stuns going, but Lulu's got her own movement speed boost, and she can just polymorph him as he starts to try to run on up here. So it's going to be really tough for him to get footing in that matchup, and you've got to expect that they're going to need to bring a Persona up top with that Sejuani to be able to make the difference here.
Yeah, absolutely. Just like you mentioned, I mean, Set really has not many tools available to his disposal to reach that Lulu, especially with the Lulu having such great answers. So I'm expecting the Lulu to safely be able to scale up there unless they really want to commit a lot of jungle pressure up into that top lane. But if I'm looking at this, we're definitely going to be seeing a non-fasting Senna combined with that Rel. So I do expect to see a little bit more attention in that bot lane, as you do want to have Senna be able to play a little bit more comfortably and likely get an earlier lead than you would a fasting Senna. You know that she won't be getting as many souls, so it will take her a little bit longer to get online, at least in that aspect, as opposed to if she was a fasting. So I would expect the Sejuani to try to go bot lane more, and we're likely going to see that top lane sit more of an island, and really they're going to just rely on dim-witted Baboon to be able to kind of deal with this Lulu on his own. In terms of the jungle matchup, we've been seeing a lot of Sejuani pop up lately. I mean, she got a bit of a buff this patch, since we are playing on 11.5. Are we playing on 11.5? No, that's tomorrow.
Believe that is tomorrow, yes.
Yeah. So I mean, she hasn't gotten the buffs yet, but I mean, she has been picked up a little bit more frequently now, as other junglers have fallen out of favor with the jungle changes. So definitely providing a little bit more utility than that Olaf, and is likely going to be able to create a little bit more space for once the Olaf decides to dive into Glaive's backline.
For sure, and really interested to see how this Senna Rel lane plays out down in the bot lane. Boost his success now, going to be going 3 for 3 on Senna games here in the LHG UL, and he had a couple of great performances. Him and Patient just ran it back both games last week with the Senna Alistair lane, farming up once again on the Senna there, and just brought out a great performance in both games. We're able to take that series pretty easily 2-0, so now going to be seeing them how they're going to match up against Karn and Turtle here, who are going to be bringing out the Jinx Nautilus, so going in with some new hotness, whereas the Senna and the Rel have really been sitting down as staples of the meta for quite a while now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Jinx definitely falling more into favor of the AD carry player, especially after getting buffed, 2 patches in a row. I mean, the arm timing on her trap sets up really well with the Nautilus hook. The fact that she now gets a little bit more of an attack speed boost when she's switching from her minigun to her rocket form. I mean, it's definitely just been buff after buff for Jinx, and it's definitely going to show as we start seeing more priority, both in LHG and in some professional and academy gameplay as well. And I mean, it's a pretty decent answer into Senna. It scales up pretty well, especially into non-fasting Senna. It can scale up pretty well. It could trade well. It has the range to deal with some of her poke. Realistically, the only thing I would like to see from Ivy Gaming is to not eat too much of the Senna poke early and be able to look for that hopeful level 2 hard engage and be able to try to get a lead, at least if I'm Ivy Gaming Black. Where if I'm Glaive Esports, I'm definitely looking to either scale up or get a little bit of jungle pressure, as the setup with the Rel, the Senna, and the Sejuani is definitely a good way of dealing with the aggressiveness that can come from Ivy Gaming Black spot lane.
Yeah, and I'm really interested to see how Glaive decides to play this out on the top side as well. Set, as we already talked about, going to be really disadvantaged in that lane state up against Lulu, you got to believe. But the Sejuani hasn't really gotten to be meta at the same time as the solo lane Set, at least not too much since Set's introduction into League. But this is definitely one of those champions that can pair very powerfully with Sejuani. The Sejuani Renekton is the infamous duo that's always been really good, as Sejuani gets passive stacks from allied melee champions, and Renekton has that double and triple hit on his W to really quickly stack that up. Set brings a really similar mechanic here, as his Q is an auto reset that really instantly gets him 2 autos, and his passive also just going to be continuously laying out 2 autos there. So he can get out those auto attacks incredibly quickly to stack up the Sejuani passive the same way that something like a Renekton can.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, once that set is on there, onto the Lulu, if possible, it's going to be really hard for the Lulu to peel him off. So we're likely to be seeing a lot of this. We're likely to be seeing Lulu try to really create that space early, poke down and whittle down the set, and kind of just try to scale up safely. I mean, it's definitely going to provide potentially a lot more if they're able to peel for their carries. The Lulu will be able to buff up both the Jinx and the Syndra with that Moonstaff build.
Yeah, certainly will be able to, but we're going to need to get loaded on up into game to find out how this is going to play out. Do not go anywhere. We are going to be right back with Game 1 of Glaive Esports Emerald versus Ivy Gaming Black. Welcome back, everybody, to Game 1 here in the LHG UL of Glaive Esports Emerald up against Ivy Gaming Black. My name is Gordo, and I am joined once again by Zymphonic here, and we are going to be seeing Zymphonic just a little bit of a standard spread here at level 1.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, both teams having pretty decent invade setup and both actually being able to respond in kind, really, to any kind of invade. So both teams choose to just play safe. Maybe look to get an early ward, as we see Ziniboo here get an actual ward into the river. Ooh, they're actually able to take that away. Good stuff by Glaive Emerald. I mean, denying that vision and just providing a little bit more safety for their jungler.
Yeah, and that's some XP over to Kakari that is going to allow him to hit that level 2 power spike in mid lane just a little bit earlier than Evan with an eye will be. So we got to be sure that both of those mid laners are going to be paying attention to that fact and see if Kakari is able to find an opportunity to abuse it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That level 2 spike is definitely going to be a big thing if Cassio can play around it or Kakari can play around it. So I would hope that that's going to be communicated over to Evan with an L. But we'll definitely see how that goes. As both junglers aiming to actually start at the respective blue buffs, so we're actually going to be seeing them kind of ending up at the level 3 at opposite sides of the map, unless we see a cheeky invade onto either side. But I'm expecting to just see kind of different pressure being applied at different lanes. Sejuani wanting to go maybe towards that bot lane, while Olaf is looking to maybe set up a kill onto the set, or at least maybe look for something up on the top side of the map.
Yeah, I gotta believe that this is a deliberate choice by Parsana up here in the top lane, as he's going to be starting away from his bot lane, just because he doesn't want to encounter Olaf at the Scuttle Crab, because he can't really fight as that level 3 Sejuani once it comes to that. But that does mean that he's largely going to be kind of hanging Dim-Witted Baboon up here out to dry, as he just has very few options up against this Lulu early on in the lane, and he's likely to be bullied for that.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. You're absolutely right. I mean, it's definitely going to be a bit of a challenge there. As I see the bot lane on the side of Ivy Gaming hit level 2, but it looks like they're not going to get much out of that. Glaive Esports Emerald playing relatively safe and being able to play back safely. So we're looking at what looks to be a very safe and potentially boring early game.
Yep, and this is also important to remember, this is our first look really at Ivy Gaming Black. They did not play their first match last week. That had to be rescheduled to next week. So they are sitting at 0-0 in the standings here, and they're either going to be at 100% or 0% win rate following this game. So really curious to see how these guys can perform. As we already said, they are really highly ranked compared to a lot of the teams in this league. But Glaive Esports, they've been playing in here for forever, and they're definitely also up there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like was mentioned, Glaive Esports, definitely the veterans of LHG being here for a bit now, where Ivy Gaming Black has definitely something to prove being the newcomers. You see Dim-Witted get a good engage here.
Yeah, he does get that stun off onto Lulu, gets polymorphed afterwards. Generally want to do that beforehand, but that's going to do it for that, as now Turtle is getting ganked down here in the bot lane. Parsana has path down here, is going to flash forward, going to get that stun, and that is going to be first blood going over to the patient in the bot lane.
Absolutely beautiful setup there. I mean, even though Turtle was able to buffer that hook onto the terrain, it was just a really good root setup and really good flash Arctic Assault by Parsona. And it's definitely one of those things you want to see. We mentioned how fasting Senna is definitely not going to be able to scale as easily. I'm sorry, non-fasting Senna is not going to be able to scale as easily as her fasting counterpart. So getting a little bit of help in the bot lane and a little bit more resources is definitely going to make that transition a little easier into the mid to late game.
Yeah, and this is the benefit of that topside start that Parsana went for here. You can see that Ziniboo, upon seeing the Sejuani in the bot lane, is like, oh, this top quadrant has to be all free for me to take. But he goes on in there, and the whole clamps have already been cleared away because he started on that side. So there's very little for the Olaf to actually take. The Gromp is going to be respawning here for him to get, and now Evan with an eye is going to be ganked once again by Parsana here, getting forced on back, and he is on the wrong side of the map here. He has nowhere to escape to. Is just left running on away. Patient is going to be going on in there. Hopefully doesn't want to end up taking a second kill, but is just going to be making sure that the Syndra has nowhere else to go, although he is going to be blast coning over another wall here. Might have delayed long enough that he can go for an execute. Probably might be a few too many members on the side of Glaive Esports Emerald coming on down here, but that is going to be a little bit of damage for Parsana. It's going to be a flash from Kakari. Not sure if that's 100% necessary, but he is going to be able to pick up the kill as a result and now be up 1-0 in this lane.
Yeah, I mean, definitely the flash, maybe a little questionable. I mean, it is definitely going to help Kakari here in the lane. However, it does put him a little bit of a disadvantage having that be Kakari's only escape, really, from any kind of ganks. But you know what? I'll take it. I mean, I'll take an early lead on the Cassio into the Syndra matchup. It'll be a little bit more oppressive for Kakari onto Evan. And, I mean, it'll just get him to a little bit of a fire size. We actually see the Verdant Barrier come out first, so he's definitely looking to take a little bit more of a defensive route, or at least build up early into that Banshee's Veil.
Yeah, super smart pickup for Kakari there. The Syndra does just bring up so much upfront damage to this lane that getting that early magic resist is going to be really beneficial to him. And the fact that he was able to spend his lead on it instead of delaying too harshly other items is going to be a big deal. Now, Dimwit and Baboon and Poke going at it up here in this top lane. A good amount of damage going back and forth, but they are just going to be backing away from each other here. Evan is now finding a stun on multiple targets, but now he's found himself engaged on Sinibu, going to flash on forward to go in on this, but Boosted Success is just taking down Evan the entire way through. Now going to be traded back by Karn, and now they're trying to fight this out. Karn has a very good fight line here and is likely going to be able to take down the patient. He does do so, and now he's excited and gets that attack speed boost to move on to Kakari. Kakari going to turn it on back. A triple kill is picked up by Karn here. Could make this a quadra on a Boosted Success here. He just doesn't have enough damage on his own, and that's going to be the quadra kill here at 6 minutes in for Karn.
So we talked about trying to get Boosted Success a little ahead, and I feel like we somehow got onto the wrong side of that, trying to give a little bit of attention to the bot lane. But I mean, fantastic quadra killing, fantastic rotation from the bot side of IB Gaming Black. I mean, if you take a look at how it would have gone maybe prior to that rotation, it looked like it was going to be a simple, 1-for-0, picking off Evan, who was maybe a little overextended in that river. But a great communication via IB Gaming Black and just immediate rotations that got Karn a quadra kill and is going to make that lane significantly easier.
Yeah, Sinibu gonna steal that one away here, but that is his smite used, which makes more sense. I think he can start stunned out of the Arctic Assault. Great play there by Evan is going to allow Sinibu to take down the opposing jungler there. Now Patient is moving up aggressively, but that is going to be halted by Poke going in for a teleport down here in this bot lane, going to be going on to the dragon in this river, and likely going to be able to pick it up as there is no jungler available for Glaive.
Yeah, I mean, what a fantastic cancel by Evan. I mean, definitely regrouping after those 2 early deaths in this early game, and just being able to just follow up with his jungler. Fantastic play. Great TP by Poke on the top lane. So that was already down here. Going to help his team capture that the first dragon. So overall, fantastic macro plays and great rotations by Ivy Gaming Black. 2 plays in a row.
Yeah, super well played by them on that. And now, like, Karn is in the greatest position imaginable here. You can tell he was expecting to kind of play out this lane a little bit passively and just farm it on up. That's why he picked up the cull, but then he finds himself with a quadra kill out of nowhere. And he goes, oh, I guess I'm dominating this lane now. And he goes in for the Zerker Greaves and the pickaxe. Now, Poke, once again, going to find himself sucked on in by dim-witted Baboon, but he's just going to be able to walk it on out there and return with some autos of his own.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, looks like Dim-witted Baboon is definitely feeling a little bit more comfortable up in the top lane after having gotten not so much assistance, but definitely just kind of recognizing how Poke is playing it out and actually seeing that potentially Poke isn't reacting as quickly as you would expect. So Dim-witted Baboon is getting a couple of good trades off and being able to neutralize some of that damage with the Haymaker as well.
Yeah, little of that to be from Poke's itemization here. He has gone straight into that Bandle Glass Mirror, which doesn't give you the most gold efficiency in that item slot. Generally, you want to go for the Kindle Gem first, but is going to be prioritizing that mana regen as a result. So is going to be a little bit better as far as mana sustain goes, but is definitely going to have a little bit less combat power. Not going to have that HP from the Kindle Gem, and is instead just going to be putting that money into the 50% mana regen.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it definitely a bit of a questionable decision, as you said. I mean, not having that both the CDR and the health from the Kindle Gem into this kind of matchup is definitely a little questionable, but here comes the gank.
Coming up for a gank here. Now Dim-witted Baboon going to ride him on out using his ultimate, going to try to use the Haymaker to escape, and is not even going to actually need to use the shield there, just going to take the flash along with the ultimate, and is going to get out there. Now there comes the scoop in from the patient, going to follow that up with a stun, followed up with the ultimate from Sejuani. It's going to come really close to taking down Karn, but he is going to survive it, just a little bit of HP to now follow up stun going through onto Turtle, and they are going to be able to at least claim his life for a 1-for-0 in the bot lane.
Yeah, another really good play setup from the bot side of Glaive Esports Emerald. I mean, they're definitely pushing that advantage down there or trying to get that advantage back by getting Persona to kind of return gank onto that bot lane and blowing pretty much all the sums. So I would expect to see Persona come back down and continue to kind of pitch a tent, if you will, onto this bot lane and trying to... Actually, here comes the rocket.
Oh, wow. The across the map rocket is going to end up picking up Dim-witted Baboon. Poke was ready for that. He presses the polymorph right away to prevent the shield from coming on through from that Haymaker, and that is going to allow him to pick up the kill on the Dim-witted Baboon.
I love myself some good super mega death rocket plays, and I mean, definitely great communication there, like you mentioned, with that polymorph. So I mean, gonna give Poke a little bit more of an edge, and will likely get him onto that Moonstone a lot quicker. And I mean, while we're not expecting it to be a lot of damage-centric build here, I mean, it's definitely going to be able to get him to those core 2 items that will just enable his team and likely enable him to set up a lot more of a grouping plays quicker into the game.
Yeah, really cashing out here in this top lane, but Dimwit Baboon managing to stay up in CS, which is pretty good for him given how much he's expected to get harassed in this matchup. Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we did mention that it was going to be a lot of harassment, but like you mentioned as well, I mean, with that itemization, it definitely allowed Baboon to play a little bit more aggressive. But we're actually going to see after that kill, and we're actually going to see the Moonstone Renewer completely come in for poke. Part 1 of that fantastic Moonstaff build now completed. And I mean, that's pretty much all you need to really get to at this point. I mean, being able to get to this point fairly unharassed and without any real jungle attention is just going to mean that poke is going to get to that power spike that he wants. And Dimwitted Baboon is just going to... I would assume, in my opinion, you would want to leave lane at this point. I mean, you want to try to make some plays happen elsewhere. You're not really going to get much out of this Lulu. I mean, with only a short amount of time left until the next dragon, I could start just expecting him to start looking to rotate down sooner rather than later.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult here. And now Turtle is going to find himself engaged on here by the Rel. Boosted Success and Persona are waiting on here as well. So they're just going to be chain stunning this Nautilus here until they can take him on down. And that is going to allow them to do so. The Glacial Prison going to go a little bit wide from Persona. It is going to enable Karn once again to escape, but he is just going to have to farm under tower and maybe even be a little bit scared of that, as this is a pretty tanky Sejuani and she does have access to the Aftershock.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, fantastic. Once again, another regain for Persona. Actually, trade coming up in the top lane.
Yeah, Dimwitted Baboon wants to be able to find this ultimate to suplex the opponent back on into the turret, but Poke is not going to let that happen. He knows that Showstopper could carry him on under there and mean the end of him, so he is going to be using that superior movement speed to just kite on back and make sure that he can't get that angle. Now, Boosted Success finding himself ganked in the bot lane. That is going to be the Ragnarok Puck from City Boy. He is coming on in just trying to finish off this kill. He's going to pick up the axe, and he is going to finish off that kill. Patient was trying to turn it on to elsewhere there, but wasn't able to do so, and now he's going to find himself trying to turn on around, actually, as Kakari is teleported down here into the spot lane. He's dealing as much damage to Turtle as he can. They have to turn back and focus him on down to make sure Kakari doesn't go down. Kakari is going to survive as a result there, and Cindy Boo just has to flash on out and stay pretty far away. He can try to farm up with Undertow, but he cannot take on these two. But now Evan with an eye has come on down towards the bot lane. Is going to try to pick up Kakari here. Kakari does manage to steal away, or rather dodge out on the damage from that E, and now is going to be able to flash on away and keep himself safe.
Yeah, I mean, really good series of plays here. I mean, what we actually didn't get to see with the Spectator being on the bot side of the map is that we actually got to see Persona deny Evan with an Eye's TP to join the fight in the bot lane. However, it did cost him his life. So overall, I mean, a solid 2 for 2, I'm sorry, for the side of... for Glaive Esports, kind of coming out
both sides.
Yeah, 2 for 2 for both sides, but Glaive Esports coming up a little bit on top there. They were able to pick up a couple kills onto the Cassiopeia, and they were able to deny really the dragon pressure that comes from Ivy Gaming Black being so ahead in that bot lane. And slowly but surely, we're going to start seeing that bot lane for Glaive Esports start to scale up and kind of null those 4-kill advantage that the Jinx got early, as we see Boost of Successes right on the Kraken Slayer, and Karn on the Jinx still not on that Mythic, likely due to the Berserker Greave itemization along with the Cull early on.
Yeah, it's going to feel a little bit rough coming on up on this dragon spawn, but he does have the Olaf on his team, which should make him a little bit favored in this scenario. We can see that Persona isn't even messing around with that dragon. He's going up towards the top lane to try to relieve some pressure onto Dimwitted Baboon here, and that is going to open up the opportunity for Cinnyboo to just move in onto this dragon and take it if he so desires. But he's not quite as confident in that. He's going to be popping the Rift Herald down in the bot lane, and is now going to be moving in potentially for a gank onto the Patient, but the Patient is able to dodge out on the Zap, and is going to be able to keep himself safe as a result. Kakari is here as well for backup, so not likely to see too much fighting here. That's going to be the stun onto Cinnyboo, but just gets turned around on right away. The Patient just biting off more than he can chew, getting turned around on and getting taken on down there. The ultimate comes in from Kakari, but not going to stun up anybody, and that is going to enable a free kill for Ivy Gaming Black. Now they're going to move on to the Dragon.
Yeah, a bit of a miscommunication there by Glaive Esports support the Patient. It looked like he was possibly looking at posture for engage where Kakari and Boost for Success, or Boosted Success, were actually just sitting behind turrets. So just a slight bit of a communication error costs the Patient his life. The Dragon over, even though the Dragon was likely going to go over no matter what, especially with the Sejuani being on the top side of the map. But overall, that's the second Dragon for Ivy Gaming Black, and it's getting them one step closer to the eventual soul, which is going to be seemingly the Earthquake.
Another gank coming in from Persona here, going into onto Evan with an eye, and that is going to enable the ground, followed up with the stun, and that's going to be an easy shutdown picked up by Kakari. And it's really good that Persona just keeps on forcing these jungle ganks, because he is so down in CS up against this Olaf. The Sejuani just cannot farm fast enough to keep up pace with this Berserker, and so he just needs to keep chain ganking over and over again.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Actually, yeah. I mean, it's a good idea, definitely. I mean, definitely taking advantage of her kit early, and we see it continue now into the mid game, where she is able to set up these ganks really well with all of her laners. CC provided pretty much in all lanes, though we haven't really seen her go top at all. But I mean, a lot of successful ganks have found both in the mid and the bot lane, where majority of that hard CC lies. And much like you mentioned, is going to make up for the Olaf, who has been pretty much farming his heart out, though still also even in terms of success, or almost even in terms of successful ganks here. So definitely Sejuani trying to make herself as useful as possible with that CS deficit.
Yeah, it's just farm and jungle meta, Symphonic, and really feeling that on the side of City Boo here. Even with the ability to get off really powerful early ganks, the fact that you just can't clear out those camps quickly enough really going to set you on behind it. That's a 40 CS deficit to City Boo right now, and that's going to result in almost a 1k gold deficit as well. Really only about 600 now, because he's been able to pick up a couple of camps on the backside, but still just going to be sitting at a deficit in that scenario, and just going to be hoping to scale on up and have two really beefy frontliners come the late game to be able to deal with Karn and to be able to hopefully just work their way on through this diving Olaf and eventually be able to win with their team composition.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's definitely going to be one of the downsides of the Sejuani, is that they really can't stop this Olaf once he goes in Ragnaroks. I mean, there's really nothing stopping him from diving that backline. So trying to create as much time possible for the carriers to scale up so that they have the burst and the DPS to be able to kill him kill the Olaf as it charges in, and hopefully, like you mentioned, having that beefy frontline kind of deal with the rest of the team as they burst down the Olaf. As we're seeing the lane swaps coming in now, we're seeing the contention for the next Rift Herald coming up shortly, as we see Ivy Gaming Black already kind of setting up vision and trying to potentially get the heads up and maybe even get play on mid.
Yeah, Persona is waiting around in the wings. They're going to jump on over with the Arctic Assault. Not going to land it on anybody, but it's going to get the stun onto Karn anyway.
Ooh.
Followed up with the Glacial Prison. They are just trying to take him down right away, but the ultimate from the Senna is going to go wide, not quite finish him off. Now Sinibu going to trade back onto the opposing jungler, but they are going to be able to turn this back with Boost of Success's damage. They pick up one kill onto Turtle, and two more targets are at such incredibly low health under the turret, but they aren't able to finish it off. It's going to be a 1-for-1 at the end of the day.
Yeah, and we see kind of that early Senna damage not really there just yet, as they weren't able to really burn through the Olaf, even though he was one of the first targets that was readily available for them. It just shows, I mean, they still need the time to scale. They don't have that early game damage that the side of Ivy Gaming Black has with that Olaf, Syndra, and even the Jinx now finally getting onto that Kraken and sitting on the full Zeal. So, I mean, really good counter gank from the side of Glaive Esports Emerald. Unfortunate that they weren't able to pick up more from those two lower health targets that were left, but overall fantastic counter gank, and they are bringing that gold lead ever so much closer to even, as they're only really down 1000k after what was a exciting early game for Ivy Gaming Black.
Yeah, and that would have been huge if they were able to pick up either of those kills. Such big shutdowns available on both the Olaf and the Jinx here, 300 and 400 gold respectively. So that's 700 additional gold, as well as the base kills just being left on the table by not being able to finish off those kills. Real unfortunate for those guys there, but they'll still take the favorable trade if they can get it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, anything is going to help at this point to get them to where they need. I mean, we actually see the Senna, from what she was able to pick up, was actually able to pick up the Rage Blade now. So sitting at those two core items that she's going to need to start dealing a little bit of damage. I mean, it's definitely, again, going to be relying on waiting on some of the souls, as she actually hasn't even hit the 40 soul mark yet. So she hasn't gotten that boost that you at least want minimally before you start fighting. But at least with Rage Blade, it's definitely going to give her that scaling and that that damage that you need into this mid game, especially as it looks like Glaive Esports is not wanting to give up this third Drake and does not want to have Ivy Gaming Black too close to that soldier, or to that soul in the next couple minutes.
Yeah, that's why people fast the Senna so much these days, Symphonic, is you just get so many more souls, and you can focus on farming onto your opposing laners as well to get even more souls, and you can hit those thresholds much faster. Because, Senna's kind of short range prior to hitting that 40 soul mark, and it's a little bit more difficult to get these fights going, but here they go on in using the Glacial Prison. They are going to land it onto Karn, excellently angled there by the side of Persona, but they aren't going to quite be able to finish him off. Now he's able to kite it on back. Kari is taking down Turtle, but that's the only one they've been able to pick up so far, and the Jinx is still free firing in the backline. Sinifu going to turn back and try to get some kills here, but Evan with an eye actually going to end up with the triple kill as a result as well. Neither carry was able to be taken down by the side of Glaive, and that's going to enable a big fight win for Ivy Gaming Black.
Yeah, a really split fight there by Glaive Esports. They kind of saw blood in the water and kind of just started to chase after one target and left the Olaf to free hit onto the Cassiopeia and the rest of the team. And by the time they were able to turn around and try to kill the Olaf, Karn there on the Jinx had already shown up and was just cleaning house along with Evan with an I, I'm sorry. And I mean, it's just, it was just too much of a split fight. I mean, it looked like we just had, like I said, blood in the water. They really just wanted it. But Evan with an eye here, okay, gonna be able to just kind of do what he does best and just kind of land a bit of damage and just push them away. But yeah, unfortunate for Glaive Esports. They lose the fight, they lose the third Drake, and now Ivy Gaming is on sole point in the next, 4 minutes. The next 4 minutes are going to be crucial for Glaive Esports to kind of get what they need and fight for that soul.
And Karn is just a monster this game. He's been getting dove by Persona over and over every single fight, but he manages to just snake on out of there barely, often with the help of his cleanse, but as of last fight, not even with the help of any summoner spells, but he's just able to kite it on out with the help of his team, able to avoid getting taken down and able to do damage wherever he can, and that's more than enough for them to be able to secure these fight wins. Evan also coming up huge in that last fight, able to land large amounts of stun and AoE damage over the course of everybody, but the fact that they still haven't picked up the shutdown because of Jinx's quadra kill back at 6 minutes is insane.
Yeah, I mean, that's absolutely the truth there. I mean, if they were able to pick up some of these shutdowns, they might be able to kind of scale up a little bit quicker and just get that gold influx that they truly and desperately need as this next Drake starts to be pinged. A little under 4 minutes left now. I mean, the best thing that Glaive Esports can do right now is try to feed as many resources into their carries as they can, and maybe try to get Senna onto that third item now that she's sitting on the Zeal, and try to get Cassio to at least finish up that Zeref's Embrace, just so that they have a little bit more resources available and tools available to contest this next Drake, because, man, Ivy Gaming Black is just kind of miles ahead at this point.
Yeah, they really need to contest this Drake too, because coming into the later and later game, Glaive Esports actually have a very straightforward way to win fights, and it's called kill Olaf. If they can kill Olaf, they actually have virtually no threats that can be brought up against this Cassiopeia and this Senna, and they should be able to just play out their fight lines with this huge beefy front line they've drafted for themselves, and keep champions like Syndra and Jinx at bay versus Kakari and Boosted Success. So as long as they're able to defeat the Olaf, which is going to be difficult because he's going to have a Lulu shield, he's going to get wild growth, it's going to be very difficult, but if they can take him on down, there aren't really a lot of good options for Ivy Gaming Black on how to continue the fight from that point.
Yeah, no, absolutely. As we see kind of a bit of a wet noodle fight up in the bot lane right now. Not a lot of damage taken by either one. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, the name of the game is kill the Olaf before he can kill you and burn through him so that you can actually deal with the rest of the team. But we might see Sinibu here get caught out.
Yeah, just going to get a little bit of CC on him. He has Ragnarok if things get a little too dicey, but he doesn't even need to use that as he's going to be able to just walk on out of there. Also, we can see that Poke has finished up that Moonstaff build that we were praising so much. He's going to be giving even more movement speed to his allies, which they are certainly going to love. Also, really interested to see where Poke decides to go from here, because he has a lot of options. You can just start building AP on the Lulu to make your shields and your damage a little bit more significant, but you can also go for some more enchanter items. You can go for something like the Ardent Sensor to boost up your Jinx and your Olaf, or you could go for the newer Hextech Putrefier, which will help give grievous wounds to your allies and will really reduce that healing coming in from Senna, Cassiopeia, and Set.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I'm Poke right here with Ivy Gaming Black, I'm definitely looking to pick up that Putrefier. I mean, it's gonna deal with like that healing that they mentioned. Absolutely. I mean, with your carries being, your Olaf, your Syndra, your Jinx, being able to get that mass healing from the Moonstaff combo along with your own shields and heals from the Lulu's kit, I just think Putrefier here is so fantastic. It kind of just almost puts that close to final nail in the coffin of these fights. If you're not letting the side of Glaive Esports Emerald sustain through these longer fights, it'll just make it that much easier to take them down and secure this. But Persona might potentially be walking into some people, but no, it looks like we're just going to ping them off, and we're just starting now to see the vision war come in between both sides as they're looking to secure as much vision as possible and deny as much as possible before this next Drake, where we're likely going to see the next big fight.
Yeah, and we can see the Forbidden Idol coming on in through for Poke, so it is likely going to be that Putrefier up next, as he does have some components in his inventory. Also important to remember, just to harp on this Putrefier point a little bit more, this is Season 2021. All Grievous Wounds are not created equal. There's 40% Grievous Wounds and 60% Grievous Wounds. And Putrefier, once you're actually shielding up your allies, that gives you the 60%. So that's the even better version, better than it's been in previous seasons, and it's going to be really effective at shutting down a lot of these healing tools.
Yeah, and it was definitely needed after, what we saw in season both 2020 and the previous season, where shields and heals kind of dominated, especially with the introduction of like Set and Senna. It was really hard and almost felt like Grievous Wounds really didn't do much into the later games. But now with that 60% option being available, it's definitely something that you want to take advantage of as much as possible, and which is likely why we're seeing a lot of these supports or enchanters coming into the top side of the map if possible.
Yeah, and we can see mid prio trying to be gained by Glaive Esports here so they can move on in towards this river to try and contest up for this dragon. There's going to be some poke being exchanged by both sides here, but they want to set up the effective fight lines so that they can try to get on through Sinibu or try to get past him to try to beat up some of these squishy backliners, but it's going to be very difficult for this side to do so. They're going to need some kind of massive engage coming through from somebody like Parsana or Patient here, but they are just going to kite back, go for the mid lane turret, but that's likely just going to leave the Dragon Soul to be able to be picked up by Ivy Gaming Black.
I'm not, I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm a fan of giving up what you can't contest. I'm a fan of saying, hey, you know, we're not strong enough, let's just try to take something else, but to give up soul like that without contention is a little interesting.
Oh, and now they're going for it. They're going to flash on forward, get that haymaker in onto Karn, but they're not going to be able to lock him down for long enough, and he's just going to get melted through by Evan. Now it's going to be the follow-up engage coming in through from Patient, but Patient has no backup anymore as they're just losing the fight across the board. That's going to be a big shutdown coming through for Evan on to boost his success, and that is going to be almost the clean ace. Parsana has been forced to back on out here. Didn't even get to ultimate in that last fight. Neither did the Set, neither did the Cassiopeia. They just lost that fight on virtually every front, and they lost it way faster than they expected to.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe this is the reason why they gave up that fourth Drake and didn't even try to contest for the Dragon, as I mean, they are still significantly weak. Ooh.
He's dead.
Oh,
He's
well,
dead.
yep. Just an alley-oop there, right there for the side of Ivy Gaming. That's going to be the ace, like you mentioned, and I mean, this game is close to, if not pretty much over at this point. I mean, there's not much, I mean, there's definitely something you can do, right? I mean, it definitely is trying to delay the game as long as possible if you're Glaive Esports and trying to provide a little bit more time for both your Senna and your Cassio to try to scale up, along with your tanks, though. If we take a look, those tankier members that you would hope would be able to hold the front line and provide that space for your carries to DPS aren't as tanky as we'd like to see. I mean, Set really just sitting on that Stride Breaker and the Bramble Vest, and Sejuani sitting on that Sunfire Aegis and the Frozen Heart. So, I mean, realistically, things like the Lulu and the Syndra are kind of burning through them with relative ease. And, I mean, that Olaf and Jinx, I mean, even with the little armor that you have, or excessive armor that you have, I mean, at this point, they're going through, especially with Karn's last Lord Dominic's regards. I mean, that armor is pretty much paper at this point.
Yeah, that's also why I'm a little unhappy with Kakari's choice to go for the Banshee's Veil here in this game, because that is just not what he needs right now.
No.
You are on Olaf killing duty, my dude, because Boost his Success is playing Senna. He can't do it, and your rest of your team is just frontlining for you, so you can't really be itemizing towards these resistances and defensively when you need to be that full glass cannon damage source for your team to have hope of winning these fights. But it looks like Poke is caught on out here. He's going to get slowed on down by that Glacial Augment, followed up with the CC from Rel, and then it's going to enable another shutdown to go over to Kakari. That's a huge amount of gold influx into that Cassiopeia to allow him to get some more items and get a little bit caught up in this game.
Yeah, but Emerald Glaive Esports are not backing in the bot lane.
And he's going to be flashing forward. He's going for it all here, and he's going to be able to get it as he picks up the Boar Rider there. Now getting chased away by Set, though. Dimwitted Baboon does have access to the Stridebreaker, but he's going to get pushed real far away here. He's going for even more, is Evan, but Evan's going to finally be taken on down there. Boost of Success going to pick up that kill with the help of his teammates, but this has bought so much time for the rest of Ivy Gaming Black because they were just massacring the top lane, and they're now here looking to move on to mid.
I mean, here by Glaive Esports Emerald, I mean, getting the best out of a bad situation. Unfortunately, they did lose that top inhibitor with only 3 minutes left onto this next Elder Drake. And I mean, top inhibitor, definitely the best one that you want here for this next Dragon, as it is the furthest away from the objective, and they're going to have to deal with super minions coming into their base. But I mean, yes, you got a couple shutdowns. That is really good. But I mean, losing your inhibitor in the process is just a little bit rough. And it looks like, I mean, again, you take what you can, but it's still looking grim, I'm sorry, even with those couple of shutdowns that were picked up. As we start seeing, I mean, even if we just take a look at some of the vision control, I mean, changing topic, look at all that vision control that Ivy Gaming Black has on that bot side of the jungle. I mean, they are going to be spotting out Glaive no matter where they go in that bot side, especially with the Dragon coming up. I mean, they're going to be spotting everything that they do at this point. And I mean, that jungle is pretty much empty aside from that vision. No camps really available for them to take. So, I mean, at this point, they're really just being starved, and it's just pretty much waiting out the inevitable at this point.
Yeah, you might have been onto something there, Zymphonic, because it is looking pretty dim for the side of Glaive Esports there. As all these pink wards coming in from Ivy Gaming Black are just completely choking out this bottom side of the map vision-wise. They can't see anything, and it looks like as a result here, Patient might be potentially face-checking here onto Sinibu. Gonna throw down the ward instead of face-checking, but that's just gonna get cleared away instantly by the Olaf as well, as now they're just grouping around in subsections down here while they're pushing out the bottom lane. They're going to be able to pick up this inner pretty much without contest here, as there's no opportunity for Glaive to move up for it, and now they're gonna have to fall back and try to defend around their last non-Nexus turret in the entire map.
Yeah, I mean, at this point though, if I'm Glaive Esports, I'm looking for a fight. I can't wait out this Elder. I mean, you just can't. You gotta hope that you can figure something out here. You have one turret. You have a little bit of time left until this Elder spawns. You have to pull the trigger, because as soon as this Elder comes out, there's really no way you're winning. If you can't win a fight now, how are you gonna win a fight with them on Elder? So you gotta look for something if you're Glaive Esports. It just has to be before these supers come up in the top lane, but they're already cluttering up there. They're building up that huge wave, and it just kind of seems like a matter of time now. They're just Ivy Gaming Black biding their time until those waves hit.
And that's all they need to do, right? Because they have the Baron buff, which is just wearing out now, but they can still just wait on up for their minions. Now, it's going to be a big root landed out of 3 targets here, but they just can't follow up because they're 4v5.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, 4v5, I mean, it's just like you're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place here. I mean, like, do you just try to make something happen before these supers hit your base? Or do you just kind of play the back and forth? And right now, Glaive Esports playing the back and forth, they don't really have much of a choice, I guess, in their eyes. But, I mean, it's just a matter of time. They're just biding their time. They're likely going to take this inhibitor turret on this next push, and we're likely going to see an engage here.
Yeah, but the turret is already fallen on down here, and there's going to be the Ragnarok popped by the Olaf. He's just diving right on it, and he's going right for Kakari, but he is going to be taken down here. This is the kind of fight that you need on the side of Glaive Esports, but they're so far behind it might not make a difference. There goes the Glacial Prison coming on through, but it is just the Jinx on Karn, just rampaging through the backline, picking up his second quadra kill of the game there, I'm pretty sure. Pentakill, unfortunately, stolen away by a teammate, but that is going to be a small pickings compared to the fact that they are going to be able to win their first game here in the LHG UL and come on up 1-0 in this series.
Yeah, I mean, fantastic close here by Ivy Gaming Black. I mean, they kind of got their pedal on the gas, and they just never really let go. They didn't really they didn't give Glaive Esports a chance to scale up. I mean, that was the name of their game. It's let's scale up. We can beat them in the late game, but I mean, after you giving up that quadra kill over to Karn, it kind of made that really difficult. And like we mentioned, some of the itemization choices as well were a little questionable, especially when it came to a really fed Olaf that was likely going to be diving and creating space for his own carries. So a couple of itemization potential mistakes, and unfortunately, I mean, just really fantastic and clean play by Ivy Gaming Black to just not give him that time to give Kakari and Boost of Success the time to really scale up and be a threat.
Yeah, a nuts game from Karn there, as he was able to pick up that quadra kill early and then was just able to play safely with his gold lead the entire rest of the game. He was continuously being dived on by Parsona and Dim-Witted Baboon and Patient for pretty much the entire game, but he was always able to find his pathway out, stay alive, end up with 0 deaths for the entire game. That ended up hampering his damage output a little bit as he was constantly fighting back, and the leader in the damage charts, if you look at them, actually turned out to be Evan by a pretty significant margin, but that's just because of how well Karn was able to kite on out these fights, and were able to open it up for Evan to just rampage on through it, as all of the CC is being focused onto his AD carry, and they aren't picking up anything for it.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, if I'm Glaive Esports Black, I mean, I'm taking a look at some of the stuff that they did here. I mean, I'm looking for a little bit more of early game power. If personally, I would try to stay away from a non-fasting Senna. I mean, we kind of got to see what happens when the Senna doesn't really get the souls that she needs and gets pushed out of lane significantly too early. And I mean, it's that laning phase that really makes or breaks a Senna. I mean, if you're able to break those 40 CS, the 40 soul mark or more while you're still in laning phase, I mean, that's a success. And I mean, we saw that Boost, unfortunately, that wasn't a success. He didn't stay true to his name, and he wasn't really able to get to that soul mark as quickly as he needed. So to be fair, while he might have had 3 items or even 4 items at the end of the game, he never really got to be online when he needed to be. So if I'm Glaive Esports, I'm probably going to call it a 3 games in a row of Senna over 2 weeks, and I'm going to be looking for something that maybe can match that early aggression that we saw Ivy Gaming bring in this game 1.
Now, we're going to have to see what both of these teams bring to game 2 in just a little bit, but we are going to have to take a quick break before we can do that. But do not go anywhere. We're going to be right back with game 2 of Glaive Esports Emerald versus Ivy Gaming Black.
just to know what you knew. Restless every time we start locking eyes. Lost control. Oh, it's paradise with honesty, but I'm in the dead of the night. Let the darkness take control. Let the darkness take control. Darkness take control. May the darkness take control. Take me in the smoke, breathe me in and let me go. Sink to your heart to find you. Open up your eyes till you're blinded by the lies, so you can see what you do. Restless every time we start locking eyes. Lost control. Oh, it's paradise with honesty, but I'm in the dead of the night. Teardrops on the floor. The pain is over. Feel the darkness take control.
Welcome back, everybody, to the LHG Ultimate League. We have got Game 2 here of Ivy Gaming Black up against Glaive Esports Emerald. Ivy Gaming able to take Game 1 in a pretty convincing fashion and going to be looking to now close it out here in Game 2. My name is Gordo, and I am joined once again by Symphonic. And Symphonic, what kind of changes are you expecting to see here in Game 2?
I hope and pray that I don't see Senna on the side of Glaive Esports Emerald. I want to see something a little bit more aggressive. They definitely have that available. And we saw a lot of great jungle attention being put into the bot side of the map. And I feel like if it was put on something that wasn't a non-fasting Senna, I feel like it would have pretty much turned the game for them a little bit sooner, or at least given them a little bit more of a chance. And as we start seeing bans, I'm seeing some real unconventional bans from the side of Glaive Esports, that Gnar and that Nunu likely targeting more of a comfort picks, but we finally see the first actual potential meta pick from the Udyr. But Ivy Gaming Black is gonna make my wish come true and not give Glaive Esports that Senna, as they're gonna pick it up for themselves.
Yeah, Cinny is a big new player, so definitely going to be expecting to see that banned away from him quite a bit in this entire league, let alone in just this series. But now that is going to leave up Glaive here with a lot of options for what they want to go for in the jungle. They're going to take the other side of the Senna Jinx matchup here coming on into Game 2, and we'll see what else they want to take here. I'm really interested to see what kind of counter pick options Glaive Esports has prepared. They went for some wild counter picks last week. We got to see the Renekton and Fizz mid, which we talked about last week. We also got to see the Urgot top coming out of Dim-Witted Baboon last week, so definitely have some spicy tech that they're willing to bring out here on the Glaive Esports side, and they're going to look to take advantage of that on the red side. As the losers of Game 1, they got side selection here, and they opted into the red side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they're going to get access to some really great counter picks, and I wouldn't be surprised to see a solo lane pick for the last R3, as they're going to be able to ban out a couple of the options, as we see Thresh being locked in with Glaive Esports to complement that Jinx and provide a little bit more aggression, as we see Ivy Gaming Black hovering that Tahm Kench, pretty much a standard pick into something as aggressive as a Jinx Thresh, especially with a pull champion. Yep, we're going to see that locked in, and it's going to provide... One, we're going to see fasting Senna as opposed to non-fasting Senna or traditional Senna, and two, which I truly hope. But with that Tahm Kench, I mean, it's going to provide them that extra bit of safety. It's going to really make it difficult for Glaive Esports to really make something happen in the bot lane, and they're likely going to have to be targeting this Tahm Kench early before he really starts to scale up and build those resistances that make it rather difficult to deal with. As we see Gragas locked in for that final pick for Ivy Gaming Black, a really good flex between between top and jungle, potentially mid, though you don't see it often, but I mean, it definitely an ambiguous pick to round out their first set of picks.
Yeah, the Senna and Tahm Kench, just a classic duo there. For as long as fasting Senna has been a thing, the Tahm Kench has been there, farming it up as a result. Been that feasting at Tahm Kench, no pun intended, with the Devour ability there. But yeah, this is going to allow Senna to really safely get up a lot more stacks, as we can normally assume, Senna... When she's got no stacks, she's a pretty short range champion. When she gets to around 40 stacks, she gets to be moderate range. And when she gets to about 80 stacks is when she starts to get too much range, and it starts to be really oppressive for the other members of the team on the other side. But this is going to be Glaive Esports now running it back with the Sejuani, taking it a second time here. But this time, they're not going to have to deal with the Olaf, as it's been banned away. They're not going to have to deal with Udyr or Nunu or Hecarim either, as those have also all hit the table as well. And now they're going to be able to ban out even more, including the Skarner.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I would expect to see something like the Kayn here banned out as well, something that does relatively well into something like the Sejuani, even as a red form Kayn, even though we've been seeing a lot more blue form. I mean, Kayn does relatively well. But yeah, I mean, if they're definitely trying to narrow it down and try to give Sejuani as best of an edge as possible, Trundle would be another good one to get rid of here. I mean, I don't necessarily know if Ivy Gaming plays it, but no, they're going to ban out the Syndra. I mean, they're looking to get rid of some of those control mages, specifically, ones that can deal a lot of damage onto the Jinx. I mean, the ulti, the unleash power. I mean, it's definitely something that no AD carrier wants to really deal with unless your name is Xayah, who can just ult back. But I mean, definitely trying to get rid of some comfort picks, as well as some things that would really make it difficult for Glaive Esports to play aggressive and more forward into the Ivy Gaming roster. And we're going to see Yone ban out, so some aggressive mid laners. I expect to, I mean, personally, I still like to always leave the top lane for my counter pick, though it is a Gragas, so realistically, that's kind of what you want to see here. You would want to see maybe something standard like an Orianna would be really strong here. The Cassio could be picked up again on this side of the map. It works fairly well with the Sejuani. But I would expect to see top counter pick to see whether this Gragas really goes to the top side or the jungle, really.
Yeah, and this is a huge brain draft by Ivy Gaming Black here, where they go for these 3 picks to start, because they really have their pick of the litter here. They can go the Gragas top lane and have it be sort of tanky or damage based and just be like a disengaged team fighty comp with their Senna and their Tahm Kench, or they can go in a totally different direction here. They can pick some side laners here at mid and top, and they can go for a 1-3-1 composition with these 3 being the base 3 and the Gragas going somewhere like the jungle. But it does look they are going to go for that disengaged based team fight comp. They're going to go for the Volibear in the top lane to bully the Ornn, and they're going to go the Cassiopeia for further disengage and to farm it up in the mid lane.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Ivy Gaming Black really relying on Glaive Esports to potentially mess up their engage and just being able to set up for a potential re-engage, or like you mentioned, using some of those tools defensively in order to kind of pick and choose what fights they want to take. Cassio, a known counter to the Ornn, unless the Ornn is really far back and doesn't allow the Miasma to really be a factor in terms of creating that engage. But we're going to see Victor locked in for Glaive Esports to match that control mage. So we're going to see another control mage versus control mage in the mid lane. I mean, the side of Glaive Esports has a really good set of really good scaling to match up against Ivy Gaming Black and the Victor, the Jinx, along with the Ornn items, where Ivy Gaming Black now has the Senna and the Cassio to really kind of pretty much what Glaive Esports had last time. It's kind of them saying, you know, what you can do, everything you can do, we can do better. And we're going to show you how to really play the scaling Senna Cassio on our side.
Yeah, it really is going to be a showdown off of the scaling compositions here. Really felt like Kakari had a great opportunity to go for something aggressive and to try to really bully this Cassiopeia here. But Ivy Gaming calling his bluff there, banning out the Fizz, banning out the Yone, and what else he has available. And the answer appears to be not too much, as he just goes into this Victor here, picks for the AoE style team comp, which is going to be fine for them, but feels like it's going to be really difficult for them to fight into this side of Ivy Gaming Black, as there's going to be some immense dive coming in from the Volibear onto these relatively immobile carries, and the Gragas is going to be able to, and Tahm Kench are going to be able to so effectively disengage from something like an Ornn and a Sejuani.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely going to be a battle of outplays, really. It's going to be, can we convince Ivy Gaming Black to, or for Glaive Esports, it's going to be, can we convince them to use some of that disengage without wasting too much of our own engage? And for Ivy Gaming Black is, how can we play around all of their engage into the Sejuani, the Ornn, the Thresh, and create enough space for us to really turn the fight once they really use a lot of their tools. I mean, much like you mentioned, I mean, going from top to bottom, I mean, that Volibear Ornn matchup, definitely favored for the Volibear early, going to be able to bring out a lot of that damage. Though Ornn is no real slouch in the damage department, as he does have really high base damages as well. Jungle wise, I mean, we're going to see the Gragas, something we're starting to see a little bit more of. It's not necessarily, it's kind of one of those picks, much like the Sejuani, that you don't really see too early, as his clearing potential isn't necessarily the greatest. However, I mean, when paired up against into a Sejuani, I mean, you're not really looking to out clear someone, so you can kind of play it relatively slow, and like you mentioned, provide that escape ability or provide that disengage factor for the rest of your team. Mid lane, I'd like to say, is where we should see a lot more of the action. I would like to see a lot of the jungler attention be. It really is going to be, you know, who can get ahead first. You know, the Victor reliant on getting ahead early so that he doesn't necessarily have to wait so long to hit those Hex Core upgrades. Where Cassio, I mean, if she can get online and maybe not go the super defensive build like a Banshee second, is really going to be able to kind of get away with the game and really be able to provide that DPS that Ivy Gaming needs to kind of transition from mid to late game and provide enough time for that Senna to scale up. Where bot lane, I mean, Glaive Esports has a little bit of an easier setup than they did last time with the Sejuani. I mean, the Dark Passage into Sejuani gank is an insane tool, especially if Thresh can land a hook prior. Jinx trap setup is what, and like I mentioned with the Dark Passage, is a really good setup for bot lane ganks. But it really depends on who they target. If they pick that Senna, I mean, that Tahm Kench is just going to be able to eat her right up and just walk away. So I expect a lot of that aggression and a lot of that target priority to go onto that Tahm Kench early.
Yeah, you really do need to focus down bot lane as the side of Glaive Esports Emerald here. You don't have the aggression in the top lane. You're in a losing matchup. The Victor's probably going to have a hard time getting too much onto the Cassiopeia, although if you can make that happen, that would be great. As now, as we're ticking on down here, we got about 5 seconds before we're locked in, and it does look like it's actually going to be Karn playing the Tahm Kench and Turtle playing the Senna. I've heard rumors of some teams doing this. It's just sometimes your 80 carries better at last hitting the minions, and your support knows how to play Senna from playing support Senna and solo queue, and this just ends up being what your setup wants to be.
Yeah, I mean, definitely not a negative thing. I mean, it's definitely a little bit unconventional in order, you know, switching the roles up. But I mean, like you mentioned, absolutely. I mean, if Karn is more comfortable with last hitting, and feels more comfortable playing up in that aggressive role where, you know, Turtle would rather stay true to his name and turtle in the backline and just kind of stake those souls. I mean, it still works. I mean, you really just need that scaling to really come out if you're Ivy Gaming Black. So, I mean, giving your support player, who, like you mentioned, might be comfortable from playing support Senna, that time to scale up, I mean, why not? It's definitely an option, but I'm expecting to see a lot of early game action in the bot lane. At least that's what I'm hoping to see from Glaive Esports, where Ivy Gaming Black, I'm expecting them to just delay the game as long as possible and really just try to look for potential counter ganks and maybe try to get an early advantage to similar to what they got in game 1.
Yeah, and the bot lane's going to be their best way to really get ahead on the side of Glaive Esports. The Thresh in particular, flavor-wise, as well as gameplay-wise, one of the better picks up against Senna in the game. It's a ranged support, so it's difficult to farm souls off of, and it still has the opportunity to kind of go in a little bit more aggressively up against that pick to try to punish the Karn, to try to punish Karn and Turtle, rather, as you could bring in the Sejuani with the Dark Passage, as you already brought up, to try to enable some more of those ganks. But we're going to need to get loaded up into the game to find out how that lane is going to play out, as well as all the others. We're going to just throw it to a quick break here while we do that, but do not go anywhere. We're going to be right back with game 2. Welcome back, everybody, to Game 2 in the LHG UL between Ivy Gaming Black sitting up here at 1-0 over Glaive Esports Emerald, hoping to close it on out here in Game 2. Meanwhile, Glaive Esports, of course, trying to force us here to Game 3. My name is Gordo, and I'm joined once again by Zymphonic, as we are going to see probably not too much action coming out here at level 1.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like we're seeing a couple of pings, at least pointing out that they can see the jungle support duo from the side of Glaive Esports. They're going to get that early ward. To be fair, I don't necessarily think that ward does too much. I mean, I don't see Gragas. I mean, it would do something, I guess, if the Gragas decided to start topside, but the positioning and kind of where that's going to be sitting on that bush, I mean, it's really not going to show much unless the Gragas looks to go for some kind of early invade into the blue side jungle. But yeah, I mean, that ward really not going to do much if you're for the side of Glaive Esports, and we're actually going to see a bit of potential bush cheese here, or at least maybe pulling the wave. I mean, they might just be looking to pull the wave here and try to push for that level 2 XP advantage. I think they did that last game as well for Glaive Esports, but we'll kind of get to see what they're looking to do here. And yeah, it looks like they are pulling the wave just a little bit.
Yep, and they are going to do that in order to try to kind of zone off Karn and Turtle wherever they're able to, as that's now getting pinged on out here by both sides. And now we can see Persona going to be starting up in the top side on that red buff.
Yeah, so I mean, a good fake leash, I guess. I mean, if I was the side of Ivy Gaming Black, up until I saw the support ADC duo starting in the bot side, I would have assumed that they would have started on the blue side. But good poke also, and we're seeing some pretty good trades here, both in pretty much all the lanes here. Bot lane definitely, if like I mentioned, if we're Glaive Esports, we're trying to push for that level 2, but it doesn't look like Ivy Gaming Black is going to give that out without a fight.
Yeah, and that is actually going to be level 2 ticked over first by Ivy Gaming Black, so they are going to have a little bit of an edge there. Now it's going to be matched by the other side, as they still do need to play a little bit on the back foot here. They do only have level 2 Senna, not going to be as powerful as the level 2 Jinx, but not getting forced out early as the other side would have liked them to be.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, we're like you mentioned, I mean, they definitely want to play relatively safe, not necessarily eat too many hooks. I mean, with level 2, we do now have access to Karn having a little bit more tools available. But yeah, really good poke coming out, or really good damage onto poke coming out in the top lane. I mean, Ornn, again, it was mentioned, I mean, Ornn has a lot of damage early. A lot of his base damage is available. Ooh, but it looks like we're going to be seeing that level 2 gank, potential level 3 gank with the Dark Passage coming in the bot side.
Yeah, just not quite working out, though. Persona knows that he needs to focus on that side of the map in order to really have a good opportunity to win this game, but just not finding the opportunity he needs here. Dimwit and Baboon, meanwhile, just going to be farming it up all alone up here on this top side. He's used to that after last game, though, as here's going to be the first death sentence the game landed onto Karn, but not able to transition that into the Flame Chompers, and so not going to be able to win the fight. And now Baboon is getting really abused up in the top lane by Poke here, as the Volibear has ticked over now to level 4, and is just using his passive to deal a ton of damage to that Ornn.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you definitely don't want to take extended trades into the Volibear as Ornn. I mean, it's really just poke damage.
Persona finding his angle in the mid lane, now going to be flashed away from, but it's going to fall off. Stun, and that's going to be an easy first blood picked up by Kikari there. We talked about how the bot lane was the priority, but the mid lane would be nice to get as well, and they are able to finally get their kill there, even if it doesn't work out in the bot lane, and now they are going to be chaining some CC in the bot lane. A mistake by Turtle there going to be to walk onto the Flame Chompers, take a little bit more damage as a result, but he is going to be able to back on away there. A little bit of a win for the bot lane of Glaive Esports Emerald, but not enough to really set them significantly ahead.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, they're definitely playing the bot lane, at least Glaive Esports Emerald. They're playing it the way they want to. They want to kind of rely on that damage to come from the hook setup. I mean, the first time we saw that hook setup into the Flame Chompers come in, it was a little late, but it looks like they learned from that in the second time around, and they're able to get a lot of really good poke, and they're able to play as aggressive as they need to. But I think that ward might have spotted Persona. No,
apparently not, as Turtle is going to walk on up right into Persona here. He's going to get stunned on up and Arctic assaulted onto, but now they're going to move on to Karn as they recognize that he's just going to devour out his 80 carry if need be. Now going to use that thick skin to survive on up a little bit more, and is going to be able to back on out of there.
Yeah, I mean, really good setup there by Glaive Esports Emerald. I mean, being able to clear out that vision right on time so that Persona could actually sneak in there and set up a really good gank, but really good presence of mind by Ivy Gaming Black. Didn't even force any sums, and they're going to be able to kind of just keep doing what they're doing, which is farming under turret and not giving up any early leads to the bot lane of Glaive Esports Emerald.
Yeah, they're missing a little bit of CS here, as it is tough to farm under turret as that melee Tom Kench, but now going to be a flash in from Poke here, as Cinebu has also come up in the top lane, going to follow that up with a flash of his own, and Dimwit going to flash away from the barrel just in time there and survive the gank as a result. That's 2 flashes for 1, and going to be a survived gank by Dimwit and Baboon. You'll take that any day of the week.
Just a little bit of a misposition on that barrel by Cinebu, not able to land that last bit of damage that he needed from that Q. And unfortunately, like you said, I mean, it's going to be 2 flashes for 1, and Dimwit and Baboon is going to be able to TP, and they're just going to match TPs up in the top lane. Dimwit and Baboon is going to be able to come up with some more health, but we're actually seeing again coming in the mid lane.
Yeah, Kikari going to have to flash on away from that body slam there. Luckily not able to be followed, as Cine did blow his top, or his flash in the top lane, rather, and not going to be able to complete that gank as a result. But Kikari now going to find himself flashless in the mid lane, much like his opponent, and is going to have to keep that in mind for future Gragas ganks.
Yeah, and I mean, that flash being down for Kakari is definitely going to set him back a little bit, as it is going to allow Evan with an eye to be able to play a little bit more aggressive. But we do see Glaive Esports actually taking advantage of that pressure in the mid lane along with the pressure in the bot lane to secure the first Drake, and rightfully so. I mean, both mid and bot just having that pressure needed to be able to do that.
Yeah, not against the Olaf this game, so going to have a little bit of a better time when it comes to dragons, and they are going to need to use this bot priority and mid priority for themselves to be able to stack up those dragons if they hope to contest a disengaged team comp like Ivy's into the late game. So going to be hoping that they get a lucky roll on the soul there, but unfortunately the two best souls have now already been rolled for the first two dragons, so they're going to have to settle for either a Cloud Soul or a Mountain Soul this game.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, Cloud Soul definitely not a bad one to pick up here, as we see Engage coming up in the top lane, looking to just trade a little bit. But, oh, fighting the bot lane.
Into the bot lane, they get the hook down onto Karn, they get the chain CC, and they're going to be able to take him down as well. Now, Poke is taken down incredibly low through the ultimate, through the Stormbringer, by the side of Dim-Witted Baboon, and he's just going to have to try to escape there. He's got more movement speed to his name than the Ornn does with that Q, and so is going to be able to run on out of there, but he does not succeed in trying to go for that kill.
Really good pick onto the bot lane as well. I mean, being able to get a kill onto Karn and be able to take advantage again of the Tahm Kench. I mean, fantastic target priority and target recognizing the correct target. I'm sorry, for Glaive Esports. I mean, that Tahm Kench is who you want to pick off here. It's the one champion that doesn't really have an escape unless he uses his flash. And then in the top side of the map, I mean, we see kind of just itemization being kind of the difference maker up in the top lane. Dim-Witted Baboon going for more of a healthier build, relying on his base damage, where we saw Poke going more for the offensive damage build. So overall, in those extended trades, it was just Dim-Witted Baboon just living out and sustaining through the fight with that extra health.
Yeah, going to be able to do that, and now has a little bit more of a lead to himself, does Poke, as he's, even though he lost that last fight, he's still able to pick up a CS lead over the Ornn, does just have a favorable matchup in general, but that is going to be a big CS lead also for boosted success down there in the bot lane, and it looks like off of that unfortunate trade that Poke just took, they're actually going to look to start up the Rift Herald in the top lane, as Patient is here exerting pressure in the mid lane, even though it's getting pushed on in, they're just leaving boosted success here on his own, and they are actually going to be able to take that one down with Dim-Witted Baboon and Persona just moving on up in that top lane and securing the Rift Herald for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I'm Glaive Esports here, I'm looking to take this Herald. Actually, hold on.
That's a little engage onto Patient. Going to force out the flash there with the explosive cast. Well played by him. And now they're going to try to move it back onto Evan here. They throw it on down the Chaos Storm, and they're just going to chase him on through. And it doesn't matter if he gets the Petrifying Gaze, as he's going to get taken down by the ultimate. And now a huge death sentence gets landed onto City Boo. And they're going to be able to take him down as well. Kakari now with a double kill, sitting at 3 kills on this Victor.
Yeah, and it looks like they're going to transition this into a bot lane, but it does look like Ivy Gaming is going to be able to pull back. I mean, fantastic play there by Glaive Esports, definitely collapsing where the need be, and definitely taking advantage of the fact that Cindy Boo had already used that explosive cask to be able to disengage. The one thing I would have liked to see was to actually, for Persona to take that Herald into the mid lane and extend that lead after picking up those 2 kills. Instead, opting to use that recall and maybe looking to reposition that Herald somewhere else, maybe the bot lane. I doubt the top lane, but that definitely could have been something. But I mean, 2 kills over to Kakari now is definitely going to make up for that CS deficit that he was building in the mid lane.
Yeah, might be hoping to throw that one on down mid to try to secure the second dragon of the game, but I do agree they could have tried to cash that one out there for a little bit more of a risk-free advantage. But now Poke is going to be going on into the top lane again, but here comes the ultimate from the Ornn, but he's unfortunately going to miss the Cold Forge God, and that's going to allow Poke to take him on down. The ultimate comes across the map from Turtle, but it's not even necessary, as Poke was able to win the 1v1.
Yeah, I mean, great, fantastic play there by Poke, holding on to that ultimate to dodge out onto the Call of the Forge God. And I mean, it kind of put Dim-Witted Baboon in a really bad spot. He had to really guess where he was going to throw that Call of the Forge God, whether it was going to land in front or behind, as it was right on top. And I think he ended up recasting it still on Poke's invincibility frame. So fantastic job by Poke, trading really effectively and kind of bringing it back after taking that early pressure and that early poor trade.
Yeah, no, he is real powerful on this Volibear now, has about a 30 CS lead to his name. Not going to go for any plates here. Instead, going to go on for that recall. Going to try to get back to lane, not miss out on any CS, and is likely going to try to extend this lead even farther, as now he's been able to pick up the Phage and the Kindle Gem off of that recall. That is actually going to be 1 plate going down, and possibly the goal to missed out on. I don't think Poke was in range for that.
Yeah, it looks like, yeah, he was not able to pick up the gold there. I mean, a really good reset. I mean, crashing the wave, really giving himself enough time to walk up since he does not have the TP available. If anything, I'd like to see maybe the rotation towards the bot lane and trying to maybe secure this dragon, as it does not look like Glaive Esports is going to be looking to give this up. And I mean, rightfully so. They still have that pressure in the bot lane. Kakari is still really strong in the mid lane, but it looks like we're going to, much like you mentioned, we're going to use that Rift Herald right before the dragon, and they're actually going to be able to secure first turret for the side of Glaive Esports.
Very nicely played by the side of Glaive there. They're going to be able to pick up the first turret for themselves. They're going to be able to funnel a bunch of that gold into Boosted Success, who is already ahead in the spot lane and who they want to continue snowballing ahead. And now they're going to be able to turn that pressure, hopefully, into a dragon as a result, as the side of Ivy just needs to scramble to try to secure some of that bot lane CS and try to get that wave pushing back in their favor. We can see that Sinibu has just given up on the dragon entirely as a concept and is just hiding out in that top lane, looking to maybe try to punish Dimwitted Baboon, but he knows he's weak side right now. He's just going to be staying on back.
Yeah, I mean, Glaive Esports definitely kind of taking the opposite approach as they took in game one, definitely keeping that pedal to the metal and just kind of accelerating the pace of the game as they're looking to potentially push this bot lane, and I would assume reset, but it might look like Persona is looking here to set something up.
Persona just going aggressively here, Arctic assaulting forward, and that's going to force the flash out of Turtle. You know, Turtle bought in to the machismo of Persona there, as he just Arctic assaults forward as though he's got a bunch of backup, even though he's on his own, and that's enough for Senna to just not even want to risk it and flash on out of there. Well played by Persona, I guess, on the bluff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, really good to take away something from the bot side. I mean, they've already taken the turrets, so why not take some summoners? As I'm expecting to see a lane swap here, or at least the lane rotation of the bot lane somewhere else along the map, just to try to provide some of this pressure. I would assume, again, top side is the best choice, as you're going to be able to set up for this next Herald that's coming up in under 2 minutes. And it does look like that's what we're going to see. We're going to see Ornn likely rotate to the bottom, as he does have TP available, and is going to likely be able to deal into this Tahm Kench and Senna quite easily, as they're not necessarily in the best state after all that pressure that has been applied to them in the early game. And it doesn't look like Poke really knows what's going on, as he might actually get ganked here if he isn't too careful.
Yeah, the lane swap really nice coming on in through for Glaive Esports here, trying to make that advantage they got in the bot lane, transition around the map here just to get themselves even farther ahead. And if we look over at the items for a second, Persona has actually gone for a real interesting choice here. He's rushed the Force of Nature because he's up against so much AP damage. He's up against the AP Gragas, the AP Cassiopeia, and even Volibear are going to be dealing a bunch of magic damage. And meanwhile, Turtle melt through a Sejuani with or without massive amounts of armor. So a great choice there by Persona, going to make him seem a lot beefier than most Sejuanis would be at 13 minutes.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, definitely that idea of, like you mentioned, I mean, a lot of the early game damage is going to come from that Cassiopeia, who's now hit the Leandri's power spike, but we're going to see a gank coming into the top lane.
Yes, then he going for this, and oh, that's going to be a nice explosive cast landed onto Patient. He's not going to be able to get out of here at all, though he does try to flash away. He gets the lantern and is going to actually stay alive for just a little bit. Poke is going to be able to finally secure that one on down, but he's going to get traded back on by Kakari once again, picking up all the kills this game for himself, as he is now going to be 4-0 here on this victor. A huge amount of shutdown gold available to him, and he's just going to keep snowballing farther and farther ahead.
I mean, really good heads-up play there by Ivy Gaming Black. I mean, they wanted to take a pick. It was a really good explosive cask. It looked like it was going to go all in their favor, but with those TPs and that rotation, or that ability for that bot lane to already be in the top side of the map, I mean, it turned out you traded your support for your top laner, and if anything, that's a win for Glaive Esports. You're able to pick up another really good kill. You're able to create more pressure, and they're likely going to be able to secure this next Rift Herald, as we see both mid and bot likely going to be rotating to it.
It would be a win for Glaive Esports, but Dimwitted Baboon went for the teleport up there in the top lane to try to back up his team, as you're supposed to. But that meant multiple turret plates going to be going down to Karn and Turtle in the bot lane, as they are 2v0 in that bot lane, able to just pick up some more CS and some more plates for themselves to try to close that gold gap. But that, of course, in turn means that this top side Rift Herald going to be able to pick up by the side of Glaive, and they can try to transition this. Second, the Rift Herald really often goes mid, and they're likely going to try to use this one to bust on through that mid lane turret.
Yeah, it actually looks like they might be setting up for a dive top. It looked like Evan with an eye was going to recall, but him staying could be his downfall, as we're seeing a lot of members of Glaive Esports swinging up in the top lane, but it actually looks like they're going to go against that. They're actually going to defer from looking for a dive in the top lane, and they're kind of seeing and kind of weighing their options, like you mentioned, whether it's mid lane, like you said. But no, it looks like, okay, we're going to look towards the top lane. They're going to look to break that down potentially. Or not.
Yeah,
I mean, they're a little indecisive. Yeah,
Cassiopeia hanging out there as well. They do have quite a while to use this Rift Herald. Might once again just want to wait about a minute and use it to try to secure third dragon. which is a good way to try to convert that and try to get even more out of what you already have, which is really the essence of snowballing and is what Glaive really wants to be able to do with this game. They've got a pretty substantial lead for themselves here early on. 2K is nothing to scoff at, as well as 2 dragons, and they just want to keep making that bigger and bigger because this Senna is just going to be picking up souls no matter what, and is really starting to come online here as he's picked up about 53 souls here and is now going to have a pretty comparable range to that Jinx most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you're definitely to the point where now your Senna, like you mentioned, has those souls, has that range available. Unfortunately, hasn't hit her first item yet, as she was kind of put in a position where those souls are coming in a little bit later after the laning phase really was forced to end by Glaive Esports with that early turret take on the bot side. But it does look like Ivy Gaming Black might be looking to give up this dragon. They're not really looking to contest a lot of this vision yet. They're really getting forced, or I'm sorry, Glaive Esports is forcing themselves into their jungle, trying to pick up as much vision as possible, maybe looking for a pick here, but we are starting seeing the rotations. There might be a bit of a contention, but I mean, to be fair, I mean, Glaive Esports here, I think they really win this really heavily. I don't necessarily think this is the best option if I'm, but actually,
whoa,
doesn't even matter.
Caught on out there right as the Rift Herald spawns in the mid lane as well. So they're going to be able to pick up mid turret. They're going to be able to pick up dragon now that the jungler is dead. They're just getting everything on the side of Glaive Esports here, and they're going to balloon this lead even higher up. And now Kakari is here to pressure on, even in the bot lane, trying to finally back up Dimwit and Baboon, who's been kind of left alone with this Volibear all game and is down about 50 CS. Now finally getting some backup from his team as they've been able to generate leads for themselves across the rest of the map.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, a really good play here is we're actually seeing the Tahm Kench ulti come in, but it gets stopped by the Flame Chompers right on top.
Maybe a little bit of follow-up from Persona here. Going to be the consume on out of there from the side of Karn, but now getting followed even farther as now they're going to be trying to turn around here onto Persona. Ooh. They're actually going to melt it on down with the Cassiopeia damage. Could not escape with the flash as he was stuck in the miasma from Cassiopeia. And now Poke sees his opportunity. He's going to try to go a little bit farther in, but doesn't want to overcommit, and he's going to back on out.
Yeah, really good attempt to punish that Tahm Kench ulti into the Jinx traps, but unfortunately, I mean, a lot of your damage aside, I mean, the Jinx being really the only damage that was able to follow up just was not enough. And I mean, the Cassio, like was mentioned, I mean, she's really strong in this mid game, even with just the Leandries. I mean, she is going to be able to burn through a lot of that health that Persona has, even with the Force of Nature. So, I mean, a really good attempt, but unfortunately, it just kind of went over for a free kill onto well, the Volibear, I guess. I'm sorry, onto the Senna, which worked out fairly well. She was able to pick up the Kraken Slayer. So slowly but surely, Senna's definitely becoming a champion, and she's going to be able to match up that damage that Boost His Success has been able to deal out.
Yeah, and that's that disengaged potential of the Tahm Kench coming on through there. Even when you think you have really good angles onto the opposing team, he's just going to be able to devour them on out of there and keep them safe. So got to keep that in mind going on forward, especially because it's even more difficult than with the strictly support Tahm Kench to just turn on and melt through that catfish first, because he's going to be incredibly tanky down here as he's been farming on up the whole game.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's one of the strengths of having that fasting Senna. She's not going to lose any gold, and she, on the contrary, going to be likely making just about the same amount of gold with all those souls, as this push cheese is actually going to get spotted out by that far side orb. But yeah, I mean, it's the benefits and the strengths of fasting Senna. I mean, she's going to be able to scale up, get a lot of gold, and that partner that she's going to be giving all that CS and gold to is also going to be scaling up. So, I mean, it's only a matter of time before this bot lane becomes a little bit more useful in terms of having a third tanky member along with the Senna who's been able to scale up what she needs.
Yeah, and just that clock going to be mattering more and more here. It really is up onto the side of Glaive to continue accelerating this game, but they've gotten most of the way there, and really they're just waiting on here to try to pick up this Dragon Soul once it comes up, and that's going to really be the next big jump for them in their snowball game here. If they're able to pick up that permanent buff, it's going to make it much more easy for them to win these fights coming out later. Kakari now getting engaged on the explosive cast comes on through, but not going to knock him straight on back, and now the flank comes in through for Persona. He's going to be doing so much damage here. That's a huge petrifying gaze comes out of Evan, but it's just not going to be enough versus 3 members of Ivy, or of Glaive rather, as they're just going to melt on through this for the double kill.
A really good attempt by Ivy Gaming Black. Unfortunately, while they weren't spotted, they didn't necessarily know the counter gank was coming from both Persona and the Patient. But it was, unfortunately, when you take a look at some of the itemization choices, I mean, the Gragas is so squishy. I mean, we saw Kakari just melt right through him. So that sustained fight, I mean, unless you're able to knock him into you and get all that damage that you need and burst him down, I mean, that extended fight was just not going to go in their favor. Kakari just insanely strong at 6-0-1 now. And looking for a pick with just 2 people, 2 of them being your more squishy members, is probably not the way you want to go as, you know, as you go into this mid game.
Yeah, Kikari now, once again, even more ahead than he was before as he picks up 2 more kills to himself up in that top lane. They just keep trying to shut this guy down, but he's playing out these fights really similarly to how Karn was last game, where he's already got the substantial lead, which is causing everybody to just dive onto him. But he's able to kite it on out every time and punish them for their over-aggression onto him. So really, it's just that lead snowballing itself in a way by baiting in the other team.
Yeah, and I mean, Ivy Gaming Black is trying their best to make something happen, but I mean, at this point, they're kind of in the same position that Glaive Esports was in last game. I mean, they should really be trying to create opportunities for themselves to scale up and not continue to take these fights or these skirmishes that really are just setting themselves further behind and really letting Glaive Esports get further ahead. I mean, about a 4K gold lead right now, but a really good stun. But we're gonna, or hook, I'm sorry, but we're gonna see Tahm Kench use that Devour and immediately stop any further aggression. But this dragon, 30 seconds until soul point, or what is soul point here, and I don't really know what you do for Ivy Gaming Black. You're not necessarily in a spot to contest this. You're so behind comparatively in most of these lanes that a fight here almost secures. That was Tahm Kench.
I thought it was, but it looks like
no?
showing is still up on the spectate client, so I'm not 100% sure what happened there, but now it looks like Prasanna is going to be going for this engage here. The Call of the Forge God does come on across and is going to knock up a couple of members, but they aren't going to be able to follow up any farther. Kikari now frontline and feeling really strong here with this Banshee's Veil for himself. This is, of course, a very good time to go for the Banshee's Veil as you're up against AP Jungler and AP mid laner, but Poke now is going to find himself engaged on by the Thresh, going to survive a little bit with that Volibear tankiness, and now trying to just engage ever farther as they do not want to give up this soul. They need their frontliners here in Sinibu and the Volibear and the Tahm Kench to be able to move on forward ever farther just to try to even contest for it, but they can't get there in time. Sinibu goes in to try to steal it away, but he isn't able to do so as Red Team does slay that dragon and claim the dragon soul, and now they're just turning on to the fight, and with the soul in their pocket, they are more powerful than ever and are almost certain to win it. Kikari does so much damage here on this Victor, and he's leading the charge onto Evan here. He has nowhere left to go. He tries to slither away, but he just can't, and he gets taken down as a result. Meanwhile, Persona has been 1 versus 3 here on the other side, and that's going to be a max range hook landed by the Thresh. Taking it even further, and he's going to be able to pick up the double kill for his 80 carry. That is going to be the clean ace picked up for the side of Glaive Esports.
And I mean, that's what I was talking about, picking up this fight right here into this Earth Soul point. It's not in your favor. I mean, just even pressing tab and checking the item differential, I mean, it's just not going to happen. I mean, you're kind of forcing yourself. You're kind of forcing a coin flip. It's a weighted coin. I mean, it's like you have an 80% chance to lose this flip and a 20% chance to actually turn it around and win. And the way the fight broke out, I mean, you kind of just ended up wasting your time. You gave out an ace, you gave up the dragon, you likely give up this turret, and this is going to be a free setup for Glaive Esports onto this Baron at some point. And you're still not in any better of a spot. You're really only at 1 full item on each of your members, where if you take a look on Glaive Esports side, I mean, you see Kikari at 2, you see boosted successes 2, and I mean, that's about it. But you start seeing that you're not going to get through them. Their damage output's going to be too high. Their tankiness already is significantly higher than yours. So why contest the dragon? You know, it's just, I understand the want, but I don't understand the why.
Yeah, and this game is now wide open for the side of Glaive Esports. They now have such a substantial lead here, sitting at almost 7K for themselves, and the Ornn is just starting to come online here. He's just upgraded himself into the turbocharged Hexperiment, I believe it's called, and he's just going to keep upgrading on his other teammates' items as he continues to level.
What a name for some of these items, right? I mean, turbocharged experiment. Oh my god, that's a mouthful. But yeah, I mean, it's just at this point, I mean, it's the scaling point, right? I mean, we talked about how we want, if you're Ivy Gaming Black, you want to scale, but I mean, do you really have the time? You're playing the opposite side of the matchup from game 1, and you're kind of getting your just desserts. You're getting pretty much exactly what you did back to you. They're not giving you the time. Glaive Esports is just going to go ahead and take this Baron. I mean, sitting on vision, not even bothering to clear all the vision that Ivy Gaming Black has. They're just saying, hey, we're going to get through this, and if you come, you die. So please try something. I dare you.
Tahm Kench in the middle of everybody, but not going to bring the jungler in time, and now they're just going to end up chain stunned and taken down as a result. The Call of the Forge God comes through, but it's too late to even hit anybody as they've just been melted through so quickly. That is going to be 2 more kills picked up for a boost of success here as they are just dominating across this map.
Yeah, and I mean, if everything now, Ivy Gaming just feels like they're just trying to salvage as much as they can, but really, what is there to salvage? Like, you're pretty much just taking fight after fight, or fight after unfavorable fight, and you're really only setting yourself further behind. I mean, at this point now, Glaive Esports is going to be able to just continue to siege this, and there's really nothing to stop them.
And then it's going to be another hook landed in from Patient there onto Evan with an eye, and he has nowhere left to go. He's going to get hit by the Jinx rocket of all things to take him down at the end of the day. And now they are going to move on into this top lane. That's the Leandry's Lament picked up for the Victor, as well as Ornn has ticked over to another one of those upgrades. And that's likely going to be one of the last ones we see all game, as with Evan down, they have very little wave clear on the side of Ivy. The Gragas doesn't have enough items to really effectively clear away the waves on his own. And so they're just going to start moving on to these Nexus turrets. They're going to take down the first one here. Pyke is on the other side, and now there's going to be a potential engage coming in through from the Patient there. Pick is now getting engaged on also. He's getting forced on away here. He just has to take the recall outside of his own base, but that means he's not here to defend, and the rockets do so much damage, they're going to force the rest of the members of Ivy just farther on back. Now the Gragas is going to be taken down as well, right as Evan with an eye comes in with the respawn. He's got to try to carry this fight for his team, but Victor is melting on through everybody. Kakari cannot be stopped, and neither can the side of Glaive, as they're going to be able to finish off the Nexus and force us to game 3.
Yeah, I mean, a fantastic turn for Glaive Esports. I mean, from what we saw in game 1, like we said, I mean, they got to play the opposite side of this matchup, where it was really relying on them to get ahead early and take advantage of that mid-game power spike before Ivy Gaming Black really had a chance to fully scale with the Sen and the Casio. And I mean, they did it. They did exactly what Ivy Gaming did to them in game 1. They just kind of full sended it. They kind of just went straight ahead and never really gave Ivy Gaming Black a chance to breathe, a chance to scale, a chance to really do anything. And that's what I was talking about. I wanted to see Glaive Esports on something a little bit more aggressive, something that could benefit from that early aggression that we saw from the Sedrani in game 1 onto a carry that could actually do something with it in the mid game. And I mean, Jinx, perfect carry for that. And they got to kind of do what got done to them in game 2.
Yeah, and we really didn't like a lot of the draft from Ivy Gaming Black coming into this, but props to Glaive. They played exactly towards the win conditions that they drafted themselves. They were playing towards that bot lane, towards the mid lane, where they had these advantages. Persona was just constantly there, making the difference for his allies and setting them up so far ahead that they were able to continuously snowball on the Dragons, force favorable fights for themselves, and win out through the lanes that they tried to play through.
Yeah, and I mean, that's definitely something, like was mentioned. I mean, all that pressure that he's applying, we saw it in game 1 where we were like, hey, he's ganking a lot, he's falling behind in terms of CS, but he's at least ganking and he's giving resources. And in this game, those ganks, those resources were put to great use. And unfortunately for Ivy Gaming Black, that CS differential from game 1 didn't really come into play in the jungle. And on the contrary, it was gank for gank, who could gank the most, who can get their laners ahead the most. In this case, Glaive Esports showed that they can do that better.
They certainly did, and now they're going to be forcing us here to game 3. So we're going to have to see how these teams want to react in game 3, how they want to change up their drafts to try to take home the series at the end of the night. We're going to need to throw it to a quick break to get there, though. So not go anywhere. We're going to be right back with game 3.
so thin. I'm sinking in the hollow ground. Nothing can stop me wanting you somehow. I won't let it die. I can feel you when you're not around. When the night gets cold, I won't be alone. We won't be
Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's broadcast of Glaive Esports Emerald up against IV Gaming Black here in the Last Tape Gods Ultimate League. We are here in Game 3 as Glaive Esports Emerald has been able to clap back in Game 2 to force us here. My name is Gordo, and I am joined tonight by Zymphonic for the third time up in draft here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, Glaive Esports definitely giving us a series to watch, as they were able to kind of turn the game on its head and just kind of say, hey, yeah, you know, the game one was a little slow. We didn't get to do it. But you know what? You try to do what we can. No. We know how to punish what we can play. So I'm excited to see what both these teams bring. I would hope not to expect to see Senna on both sides. I really don't want to see it from either team at this point, as neither of them could unfortunately make it work through all the pressure that the opposite team applied onto them. Some of the bans are actually changing as well. I mean, we're seeing Olaf banned out by Glaive Esports as opposed to IV Gaming. And we're seeing the the Udyr and the Relic ban coming out for IV Gaming Black, as we're actually going to see Hecarim, one of the junglers that was actually let through this time through the ban phase, and we might actually see it immediately answered, and yes, we do, by the Skarner.
Yeah, the Hecarim been banned
crash.
both games so far in this series here, but finally going to be let through here, and we are going to see that classic Hecarim counter in the Skarner locked in.
Absolutely. I mean, that Thresh is going to assist him as well, being able to kind of set up the Skarner for a really quick Chemtech into an Impale, take the Dark Passage, bring him back to the team, and just set up for a really good pick, or even a defensive situation where maybe Skarner misses that Impale target and needs to kind of regroup back and wait for the next opportunity. So we're going to get to see what Glaive Esports picks up here. Hopefully something safe. I wouldn't be upset by seeing something like a Xayah in the AD carry role, or even like a Kai'Sa, something that can necessarily peel for themselves. But Alistair, a really good choice here, being able to just kind of knock that Skarner back and break through the Skarner Impale with his ulti.
Yeah, great move there to be locking in this Alistair by the side of Glaive, but I've been really impressed by Ivy's drafting throughout this whole series so far, and really curious to see how they want to follow on up here. Really like the Skarner as a counter to Hecarim here. Really tough for Hecarim to itemize into something like the Quicksilver Sash, as it's just so expensive, and Hecarim cares so much about hitting his item thresholds in the early to mid game, so great counter pick there for the Skarner. Also, really like Glaive here, going once again for the Jinx. The Jinx has snowballed ahead in both games tonight for either team, and just picking out ahead of the curve here to make sure that they have access to it, and the side of Ivy is not going to. So now it's up to Ivy if they want to pick some sort of AD carry here. What do they want to take into the Jinx? The Senna has not been effective in either game thus far. Well, they do have other options here. They could go for something like a Jhin and try to itemize towards a pick comp, or they could go for something else, maybe not even an AD carry at all. It's going to be the Ashe, actually.
Ashe, definitely a good choice. I mean, definitely sets them up for what they want to do, which is that pink pick comp. Options that were also available, you know, something like you mentioned, like the Jhin, maybe even a Sivir that kind of accentuates what they want to do in terms of speeding up and kind of getting to where they want. But Ashe definitely does the job as well, going to be able to slow poke and use that enchanted crystal arrow to set up for an easier pick target. So I'm expecting to see, I'm assuming again, mid lane bans, I'm assuming to see some of these control mages being taken away, but Ivy Gaming Black is going to decide to remove some of these aggressive bruisers away from Dim-Witted Baboon, looking to get rid of that Darius that can cause a lot of teams a lot of problems just because of how aggressive it could snowball. But Glaive Esports is going to respond in kind with some of those control mage bans. But yeah, it looks like both sides are looking to ban out different laners or different lanes and where they see the most issues coming from.
Yeah, and Glaive is pretty much committed to a hard team fight comp at this point, so Ivy's going to be banning away things like the Ornn to try to kneecap that a little bit at its source. Now, I'm really interested here to see what Poke decides to go for. It is going to be the Gragas here for a more disengaged style team comp and for the ability to start up fights. I was really curious to see if he wanted to go for some kind of split pusher here. In theory, you could still go for something like that on the side of Evan with an eye. but not quite going to be the not going to be like that 1-3-1 composition that it looked like they might have had the opportunity to go for.
Yeah, I mean, the Greg is definitely a really good choice here. I mean, it can set up again for those pick comps. It creates that disruption that you want with that explosive cast to allow the Skarner to kind of grab a priority target and toss it back into his own team. But for the side of Glaive Esports, we're going to pick up the Orianna, a really good addition to their kind of all-in comp here with the Hecarim and even the Alistair being two prime targets for that Orianna ball and shockwave combo. And it just, once again, also leaning towards that disruption effect and being able to allow that space for that Jinx and the Orianna to DPS, and a good follow-up for the engage that Hecarim and potentially Alistair will have. And it looks like they're going to run that out with the set, something to kind of potentially stop a maybe counter engage, if it's Skarner not really available, or if the Skarner ulti is not available and they want to look for something else on a pick. Set is going to be able to kind of grab whoever is closest and just dunk them right back into their team, and again create that space for his carries.
Yeah, beautiful draft here from the side of Glaive. They got the great team fight composition here, and it's pretty much exactly what they're going to be looking for. Now, the side of Ivy, you need to figure out what they want, and they are going to go for some heavy scaling here on the side of the Vigar, and going to keep focusing around their ability to potentially pick individual targets and to kite out these fights. They have the Gragas now with the heavy disengage. They have the Dark Passage from Thresh, and they also have access to Event Horizon, which is really going to work to zone out the members of Glaive Esports and separate them from each other.
Yeah, I really like that Vigar pickup. Like you mentioned, that cage or that Event Horizon is going to be just such a really good tool to really deter and stop Glaive Esports from following up on any kind of pick. I mean, if Skarner grabs anybody, I mean, Vigar is going to be able to just drop that cage and prevent for the rest of the team to really follow up immediately, or they're going to have to suffer potential poke and damage from the rest of the team. So, I mean, I'm interested to see how both these teams play their comp. I mean, if anything, I kind of want to give it to Ivy Gaming here, just based off of kind of what their comp does. We once again talk about disruption and disengage and really good pick potential from the side. It kind of changing or bringing the odds in their favor, trying to turn any kind of potential 5v5 situation into a quick 5v4. But I mean, Glaive Esports, their comp's no slouch either. They'll be able to, even if someone gets picked by the Skarner, they have the potential to just kind of all in if they can dodge around that Vigar cage or dodge around that Gragas explosive cask. It'll really depend on Glaive Esports pulling the trigger before Ivy Gaming can.
Yeah, and Glaive really has the advantage here in that they have a lot of winning lanes. They have the set, which is going to be able to do fairly well into the Gragas. Gragas not going to be able to have a lot of tools to avoid that set damage and that set engage, not in the way like the Lulu did back at the beginning of this series. And the Vigar doesn't exactly slam the Orianna either. It's going to be outrange for quite a bit of the laning phase, and it's going to probably find itself being pushed in for quite a while there, at least until it can get some more levels under it. So going to be a really tough time to stop this Hecarim from just kind of taking over the jungle to a substantial margin. Now, the Skarner is very effective into that Hecarim, but he does need to get to level 6 to really be able to enable himself to go for those kind of picks like he wants. It's possible to pick Hecarim, whereas it's not quite as easy to pick a lot of other junglers, which is why you go for the Skarner. But it's going to be a little bit before they're able to reach that, and Ivy has to be concerned about Glaive just really accelerating the game like they did last game and blowing them out of the water early.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Ivy Gaming Black is definitely going to want to be able to play a little bit more defensively, and I mean, their champions really allow that. I mean, like you mentioned, the Vigar will likely be pushed in a lot of the game into that Orianna lane early, but I mean, realistically, that's what Vigar can excel in. I mean, he has the opportunity to CS, hopefully well under turret, and kind of scale up. Ashe Thresh, a relatively safe lane. Thresh being able to create space for the Ashe. I mean, Ashe able to do that herself with the volley and the slows. And Gragas, I mean, is going to have that sustain available from his passive to kind of sustain through some of that damage from the set. So realistically, like you mentioned, while Skarner wants to wait for that level 6 power spike to be able to do what he wants to do, I think Ivy Gaming has really set themselves up in every lane to be able to play safe and not give too much early. So it'll really be on Glaive Esports to kind of force some of these fights and really be the aggressors, much like we saw in game 2. And Hecarim, much like Sejuani, is going to be able to enable those ganks relatively early in really any lane he chooses.
Yeah, certainly does have access to that there, but the side of Glaive really needs to play disciplined in this game, because if you just step out a little bit too far out of position, you could really be punished for that there. Enchanted Crystal Arrow going to stun you for a very long time if you're separated from your teammates, and that can be chained into so many other catch tools. It can be chained into additional stuns from the Event Horizon. It can be chained into Death Sentence from the Thresh, or it can be chained into the ultimates from either Gragas or Skarner, which will force you even farther out of position. So you really need to tighten on up here, stick close to your teammates, let Alistair or Set front line, because they're the kinds of champions who can survive that sorts of engage, and then follow on up with your team fighters and your Hecarim, your Jinx, and your Orianna to be able to win the fight after the fact.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, I'm definitely excited to see what both these teams bring. I mean, they're both playing things that I can see them being definitely comfortable on. I mean, based on what we've seen from their play styles so far. And I'm just excited to see who can play their comp the best. You know, are we going to see Glaive Esports early aggression kind of take the lead and force that early game, just like they did in game 2? Or are going to be able to see Ivy Gaming really just stay true to their comp and just sit back, relax, and really let everything come to them until that level 6 and just kind of take it super easy? I mean, that's kind of what I'm expecting Ivy Gaming Black to do. However, I mean, they're not known to not be aggressors in any of these lanes. So, I mean, Ivy Gaming Black does have the opportunity to really turn favorable trades if they're given what they need. I mean, the bot lane with the Thresh Ashe, I mean, a really good hook could lead to a really good trade that forces the Jinx Alistair to potentially play back. Gragas again has a great sustain where if he can trade effectively into the set, it's going to allow him to sustain up. And then Veigar, I mean, nothing, you can't be too... You have to be a little careful with the Veigar, especially with some of these trades. Even in the early game, if you step up too far and you land a cage, you're going to be eating some free poke. But yeah, I'm super excited. Both these teams, really strong teams. I'm really excited to see who can take this home for them in the game 3.
Yeah, and a huge deal here is going to be who gets out onto who starts out on the right foot, who's really driving the pace of the game, because the side of Ivy Gaming Black really wants to have good vision lines down so that they can make the picks that they want to make, and so that they can take advantage of all the pick tools that they have access to, because they have pick, but they don't really have poke, and they don't have a lot of great tools to face check. So it's going to be really tough for them if they lose control of things like the river and their own jungle early on, and the side of Glaive Esports are able to put down a good vision line and know where they are at all times. It's going to be really tough to fight on into them as 5 from that position. So really going to expect Glaive Esports, as you said, Ivy Gaming going to have to play a little bit on the back foot here early on, as they just need to wait to scale up and get to level 6 to be able to have access to a lot of their best tools. But they got to be careful not to give up too many things to the side of Glaive Esports, as if they're able to get a substantial gold lead and able to get a vision advantage, it's going to be really tough for Ivy to make their comp work in the first place.
Absolutely. I mean, man, I'm just excited. I got really no more words for this. I mean, I'm just excited to see what these teams can do and if they can bring our predictions to fruition and play the way that they need to. And I mean, I'm expecting both these teams to do their absolute best to really give us a show on this game 3.
As am I here, but we are going to need to take a quick break before we can get loaded on up into that game 3. So we are going to do just that, but do not go anywhere. We are going to be right back with the game for game 3 to determine who wins this series between Glaive Esports Emerald and Ivy Gaming Black. Welcome back, everybody, to tonight's broadcast of Glaive Esports Emerald up against Ivy Gaming Black. We are here for Game 3 after each side has been able to take one hard-fought match, but only one is going to be going home with the W tonight. My name is Gordo, and I am joined once again by Zymphonic for the Game 3 action.
Absolutely. I mean, both sides, definitely wanting to bring this game home as we actually see a little bit of early aggression. Hecarim not spotted there. Oh, okay. But interesting. Okay. But they're able to get that word across. That's definitely what you want. We've been seeing a lot from Glaive Esports, Emerald trying to get that early vision control and trying to spot out that early jungle. We're going to see the same thing happen here. But once again, actually what happened in game 1, Cindy placing that ward in that pixel bush, but Glaive Esports just being ready to go to take that away and deny any kind of vision in the river for the side of Ivy Gaming Black in the early game.
All right, Ivy Gaming Black. Pit Grit is a thing. You can't place the ward up against Set at level 1. He's going to take it down right away because he gets real fast auto attacks with the left hook there. But got to come down that way. Once again, this time he's going to end up taking it. So he is going to be getting that level 2 a little bit earlier up against Poke. We're going to see if he has the opportunity potentially to abuse that one, as that is a winning jungle matchup, or a winning top lane matchup for the Set.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely expected to see that early aggression come out from the set before Poke can really start itemizing for that sustain in the lane. And in the bot lane, we're actually seeing the side of Ivy Gaming Black trying to play aggressive early, trying to pick up that level 2 spike so that maybe they can get some early trades in and trying to get that lane advantage. But really good trades coming up in the top lane.
Not even waiting for the level 2 here.
Way.
He's going to start wailing on Poke here. He saw the opportunity to get the face breaker in onto the Gragas, and he took it right away and is going to be up to a substantial lead as a result. And now he's hit level 2 first, and he can try to pressure this even harder.
Yeah, at this point, Poke is just going to be forced to kind of wait until the wave hits his turret. Oh, but a really good level 2 potential hook there. But boost of success, sniffing that out right there. Not going to let that happen, but they're still going to need a little bit of Poke, and pretty much what you expect. Ash Thresh going to be taking that early game lead in the bot lane and trying to crash these waves as quickly as possible.
Yeah, Ash still one of the most powerful laning AD carries out there. Just the oldies are the best, really. They don't make laning AD carries like they used to. They just make them like Senna now, or Aphelios, where you just kind of sit back early on and have to farm up for late game. But Ash still has that huge volley to just apply pressure across the whole lane, and is going to be able to take a little bit of an advantage here in the early levels.
Yeah, absolutely. But now that level 2 has been hit by both sides, it doesn't look like Glaive Esports are going to want to play it too safe, as they're letting the wave kind of come back to them. They're going to be looking to potentially trade in that level 3 spot when we have, Alistair fully online with that full combo of, the headbutt pulverize into the trample. But it looks like Patient, oh, there it is. Patient was just a minion too short, but they now with the level 3 advantage, they're going to be forcing Ivy Gaming's bot lane to kind of force back and get that river control for the potential Scuttle Crab contest.
Yeah, they're a little bit scared of the level 2 Alistair engage, which, is rightfully so. Patient can definitely bring out a lot of pressure with that, and they do not have the real jungle advantage early on, as their Skarner is not level 6 yet, and they do know that Hecarim is hanging around in the area. That was going to be the bot scuttler. It managed to be picked up by Siniboo there, and now they know that the Hecarim's in the mid lane. Siniboo actually here to provide a little bit of pressure as well. He knows that the Hecarim is going to be going up for that top scuttler, and he's got Poke coming down to potentially back him on up, so they might try to contest Persona on this. Poke is here. He does have a huge wave crash into the top lane, but Persona going to be able to smite away the scuttler, and that's going to make everybody just back on out.
Yeah, while the pressure was in the favor of Ivy Gaming Black to help their Skarners get those Scuttle Crabs, it just, the damage that Hecarim can put out and how quickly he can take that Scuttle Crab was just a little bit too much, and they weren't able to collapse on him quick enough. And at this point, Siniboo getting... Actually, he didn't get double Scuttle. He was able to pick up the bot one at least, so he's able to go even. But, he's just trying to farm here and trying to get to level 6 as soon as possible, and that double Scuttle would have been really nice for him.
Yeah, that's going to be another Facebreaker landed up in the top lane. Poke just going to get continuously engaged on by Dim-Witted Baboon here, but has not really fallen too far behind in CS. Was able to recover from that unfortunate level 1 pretty easily. Was able to just use Happy Hour to sustain on up and keep on going, but now he's getting traded on yet again. The Dim-Witted Baboon going to get the stun off the Facebreaker once again, going to go for the Haymaker, deal as much damage, but he's going to just get returned on by the Drunken Rage, and Poke actually coming out ahead in quite a few of these trades.
Yeah, that Haymaker, good use to try to get some damage, but it wasn't able to help him sustain or kind of mitigate some of that damage that Poke can bring on. Gragas still has damage, even with just the Doran's Ring, and the sustain is just going to be much easier for him to have, and Poke, I wouldn't be surprised if I see more fighting here from Poke.
Yeah, that's going to be another barrel landed on a dim-witted baboon. He does have
Wave's
that
pretty big,
increased
though.
regen from the picture. He's going to get turned around on with a drunken rage and taken down for first blood. And now Turtle is fighting down here in the bot lane. It's going to be a huge stun coming up across from the Vygar. The Event Horizon going to lock down a couple of targets, and it's going to allow them to take down Patient. But that is going to be about it, as Cineboo is going to jump on away. But now Persona going to go for the big knockback. Not quite going to get it onto the Vygar, as they're trying to push a little bit farther, but not quite going to be able to do so.
Yeah, I mean, a really good kill up there top by Poke. I mean, like I said, I mean, you're not able to out-sustain the Gragas in these Bruiser v. Bruiser matchups. And I mean, having no sustain really aside from the pots that he already wasted. I mean, Dim-Witted Baboon took a bit of an unfavorable fight there. And in the bot lane, I mean, it's good to see that they were able to trade 1-for-1 for the side of Ivy Gaming Black. Overall, that 2-for-1 across the board. And I mean, it's going to get, and going on to the Skarner, it's going to let him get a little bit further ahead. But Glaive Esports is going to turn that around, going to be able to pick up this early dragon off of, you know, that fight or that skirmish, and it's going to make up for that 1 kill deficit that they had.
Yeah, a bit of a disaster in the top lane for Dim-Witted Baboon, though. The fact that he's been set so far behind early, taken down for the first kill of the game, is really going to set him back. Now there's going to be a Bramble Vest picked up on the side of the Gragas to start preventing his damage even farther. Poke now going to be hitting level 7 first. And this was a lane that they counterpicked and that they were really expecting to be able to get some advantages out of.
Yeah, I mean, I was definitely surprised with the set pick into the Gragas. I mean, Gragas, again, does relatively well into these bruisers as he can out-sustain some of their damage. And it really isn't until later that Dim-Witted Baboon, maybe once he hits that Blade of the Ruin King, which is what I'm assuming he's itemizing to first, will he really be able to take some of these more favorable trades. So, I mean, the fact that that early aggression didn't really pay off for Dim-Witted Baboon, it just makes it that much more difficult to be able to really do much as we see him shoved in the top lane now.
And Kakari able to actually pick up that Scuttle Crab there that Evan with an eye was working on for a very long time, as he just has to get Dark Passage on out of there with the addition of Patient and Kakari coming in to collapse on that. So they just say thank you for the leash, and they're going to be able to pick up that Scuttle Crab.
Yeah, I mean, really good rotation there by Kakari. I'm sorry, by Evan with an eye. Ooh, trades coming up in the top lane. Again, that Haymaker being used, I want to say a little too early. I mean, you're not really mitigating much, and that damage is kind of negligible this early. But, I mean, hey, you do what you can. You're trying to get yourself out of here. And, I mean, Hecarim is here, but he is going to be spotted on that Red Ward and will likely make nothing of that gank.
Yeah, and every time Dim-Witted Baboon goes in for a trade here, the Gragas just starts drinking for his Drunken Rage, and that gives him that damage reduction so that the punches don't actually end up doing that much. You can see here, he goes in for the drink, and now he's taking basically no damage, and he can trade back, get a Grasp proc, regen even more, and he comes out pretty much ahead for the trade.
Yeah, and I mean, like I said, I mean, that Haymaker from Baboon is just not really doing as much as you wish it would. I mean, you would hope that you would time it maybe a little bit better to try to use some of that shield to kind of mitigate that damage. However, I mean, the Great really isn't building up as best as you can. Poke really doing the best he can to kind of take those short trades and not really look for any sustained trades or longer trades with Baboon here.
Yeah, and he's coming out ahead as a result. So now it's really up to Persona here. He's been able to pick up 1 kill, but now the Skarner's ticked over to level 6, and he hasn't really been able to build up too substantial of a lead for himself. Got to be really careful now about where he's going to be relative to the Skarner, as the Skarner has access to that Impale and is going to be a pretty substantial threat to anybody that he can find. Cinny, though, does not have the flash quite yet, was forced to blow it earlier when he was able to pick up that kill, and so he is going to be potentially waiting for that to get the most use out of this first Impale.
Yeah, a lot of pressure being applied towards this middle of the map as we see Turtle and Cinny kind of sitting in the middle, maybe looking for something here, maybe set off of the Event Horizon as they're seeing trades go off in the top lane, but it does look like Cinny is going to be spotted out by a potential ward, or at least pinged away, and it looks like both junglers are actually going to spot themselves in the bottom side jungle, so now each of them has vision and knowledge of where each other is.
Yeah, and all this time where nothing's really happening really favors IB Gaming, you got to believe, as they're going to be able to just continue to win up in these lanes. But now there's a full engage going in from Dim-Witted Baboon in the top lane, and he's going to finally be able to get the solo kill that he wanted out of this matchup. A full all-in onto the Gragas, gets the extended trade that he's always wanted on this champion, gets the level 6 to be able to deal more damage, and he's able to finish off his lane opponent.
Yeah, and I mean, that's what we were talking about, right? I mean, Poke was doing such a great job in the early game to just kind of take short trades where Dim-Witted Baboon was not able to build up enough true grit and wasn't able to, or I'm sorry, enough grit to be able to make use of that Haymaker and be able to make use of that damage mitigation. But as soon as you take that extended trade, even with the even with the Bramble Vest, I mean, eventually that set punches actually do start to hit their mark, and to be able to dodge out on some of that damage, like the explosive cast with the Showstopper, and just overall, I mean, he kind of was able to turn this lane a bit around and was able to pick up some plating as well. So, I mean, this set's going to be huge coming back.
Yeah, and Glaive Esports back on plan now as Dimwitted Baboon has gotten himself back into this lane. He's back with a minor CS lead for himself. He's able to exert pressure in the lane as he's demonstrated that he has kill pressure, and now they can hopefully try to move some of that and try to start contesting for this dragon, although neither top lane are going to have access to TP for this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, now Dimwitted Baboon's going to be able to come back with that Blade of the Ruin King. I mean, that percentage health damage is going to be insane now, since you are seeing mostly health going to be built out of Poke. He's going to go for likely for all that all the HP and armor to be able to sustain through some of these fights. But, ooh, what a great hook. Insta cleanse though. Great stuff by Boost to success.
Yeah, super important for Boost's success to be able to cleanse on out of that, but great hook by Turtle, going to make sure that that resource is not going to be available for Boost come this next dragon fight, which is going to be occurring here in just a few seconds. We got to see if both sides want to choose to contest for this, although Ivy Gaming Black might have a bit of an opportunity to contest here. They are not really the most powerful early game composition, but they do have access to the Impale on Cine here, which is just a huge difference maker in these sorts of fights. They have the phase rush on the Skarner, so he's just going to be able to get a huge amount of movement speed and pull somebody way out of position if he can get onto them.
Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I mean, it looks like Glaive Esports actually smelled out that potential Dark Passage play as they were pinging that back tri-bush for the side of Ivy Gaming Black. They were able to back away. They instead decided to rotate over to the Dragon and kind of made that potential play in the bot lane kind of null and void, and they're able to secure that second Drake. And oh man, we're going to finally see an aggressive soul. We're going to see the Infernal Soul come out here for game number 3.
Yeah, we certainly are, and Glaive is going to love to see that. Ivy Gaming Black, once again, cannot really get into these unless they're able to pick out an isolated target, and not able to find one in that last fight means that the Dragon ends up going towards Glaive Esports, and that once again means that if Glaive is able to continue to pressure these advantages, they got a pretty good CS lead in the mid lane. They're staying even in the bot lane, and they're starting to get ahead in top. If they can get, oh, that's a flash blown in the mid lane by Kakari. He gets stuck in the event horizon from Evan with an eye, and he just suspects that Sinibu might be hanging around in the bot side, maybe even spotted him on a ward, and so he's just going to flash on out of there.
Yeah, I mean, really quick thinking by Kakari, definitely not wanting any of that. I mean, I believe, like you mentioned, Sinibu was spotted on that red ward in the tri-bush, so as soon as that event horizon came in by Evan with an eye, it just pretty much meant, hey, I'm not sticking around for this. I mean, I can tell at least that, I mean, Sinibu didn't have the chem tech, but I'm not going to play around. I'm just going to blow my flash and maybe play a little safer. I mean, at this point, Glaive is just doing everything they can to deny Sinibu from really doing what he needs to do. You know, we're 12 minutes in, he's only level 7, but he hasn't even gotten a chance to use an Impale even once.
Yeah, Dimwitted Baboon once again just trading up against Poke in this top lane. He's just focusing on clearing out the wave, getting a couple of punches in on the Fat Man when he finds the opportunity. And now both sides going to be posturing potentially around this Rift Herald. The priority in the top going to be very important for the side of Glaive Emerald as they are looking to start this one up. They want to continue to just pick up every objective on the map. And you would see they're still sticking so close together. They've got 4 men up here in this top lane while Orianna holds mid. And they are not going to separate from each other in the slightest because they know that's the only way that Ivy Gaming Black can find an angle onto them.
Yeah, really strong heads-up play here by Glaive and just making sure that they get the rotation sooner than Ivy Gaming can respond to. And they're able to secure that Rift Herald completely uncontested, and now they're forcing themselves onto that top lane. They're still sticking around, maybe looking to drop this Rift Herald if possible, but here comes the play. The Enchant Crystallero is going to go wide. But,
yeah, they wanted to hit
so
that,
close.
and they wanted to have Sinibu then flash, go for the Impale onto him, but they just don't quite get it. Now they're trying to do the exact same play with the Cask this time, and they're just going to have to settle for the Alistair, but he's just going to cleanse away immediately with the Unbreakable Will, and now they're trying to turn this on back. Dimwitted Baboon is teleported in to try to go in for the play. He's going to go for the huge Haymaker, but its shielding is just not going to be enough for them to win out on this fight, and now there just aren't enough members of Glaive to take the fight at a time, although it looks like Persona is trying to turn this around on his own, but not quite going to be able to do so, as Turtle is now going to come in as well. That is a double kill, both picked up for Turtle on the Thresh, so not actually going to have a huge impact for the side of Black, but still those 2 kills for none going to enable them to start pushing up into this top turret and allow them to get a little bit more control in this game.
Yeah, unfortunate for Glaive Esports, they were able to sniff out that gank, and they were able to really just disengage from anything that. Oh, actually, hold on.
That's just going to be skill
man.
all at once. Finally, one of them's going to connect, and it's going to be the death sentence, which is going to enable them to just take on out the opposing mid laner. It's another kill picked up on their side. This time, it's not going to go over to the Thresh, so it's going to have a little bit more gold value, and that is going to be the side of Ivy Gaming Black, kind of finding their moment, and now they have a chance to take a little bit more control in this game and really start to flex their poke composition around, or their pick composition rather.
Yeah, I mean, it goes from bad to worse for Glaive Esports. I mean, they had the opportunity to just walk away from that Skarner Gragas setup originally in the top lane, but that TP coming in from Dim-Witted Baboon kind of almost forced them to kind of play aggressive and try to turn the fight. But unfortunately, I mean, they were able to go, they went 0 for 3 there. They weren't really able to do much, and it looks like the carries from Ivy Gaming Black were just able to position as well as possible, as well as they could have, to really get those kills and pretty much stop anything that Glaive Esports wanted to do. However, I think we're going to see the Rift Herald being dropped in the top lane.
Yeah,
Yep, there it goes. Okay, a little bit of a delay, but yeah, I mean, they're definitely looking to take that first turret here.
Yeah, I mean, and this was their game plan all along, right?
Yep.
As Glaive almost had the opportunity to really kind of blow this game wide open and go exactly according to plans. They were able to pick up the first 2 dragons. They were able to get some leads in their lanes. And then they were moving on up into the top lane, which was down to only 2 plates after Dim-Witted Baboon had been pushing on it for a while. And they were going to crack open first turret with plates still up using that Rift Herald. But unfortunately, the whole play goes sideways, as even though they're able to dodge out on the big engage attempts coming in from Ivy Gaming Black, they eventually just try to overpush on the fight, even though these tools have been broken. They weren't able to win it on out, and so they end up being set so far behind, and they lose out on their entire opportunity to snowball the way they were wanting to. And now the game is back to pretty much even, with Ivy Gaming Black finding some more picks in the top lane, or in the bot river, rather, as they're going to pick up onto Persona. There's that big Impale that we talked about, so effective against the Hecarim. They just have, he has nowhere to go. He just gets chain CC'd, and he's going to get taken down as a result.
Yeah, and what a perfect timing for Ivy Gaming to really pull that trigger and use that first Impale successfully, as they were now able to, are going to be able to secure this dragon. I mean, Hecarim down for another 13 seconds. I mean, I see no reason why they wouldn't be able to secure this. Glaive Esports agrees, and instead of trying to contest for this dragon, they're looking to push and get mid lane prio. Likely not going to be able to get much, as Vygar is already retreating up to the mid lane. But overall, fantastic use of the Impale, and now Ivy Gaming has their first lead of the game at 400 gold.
Yeah, and we talked about it. Ivy Gaming Comp cared so much about having this vision control. The fact that they were able to be first into that river prior to the dragon spawning, that they were able to get their vision down first, means they're able to ward that ping brush, means that they see Persona going in to try to clear it out, and they're able to get the all-important pick on them. So now they can start turning around these fights, they can start taking these dragons, and they're going to continue to try to push this advantage. You can see all of the vision that they have set up on that bottom side prior to the dragon coming up is so that they can see when individuals are out alone, and they can punish them with their pick composition.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, immaculate play. I mean, like you mentioned, with all that ward and vision control they have Karn's ability to use the hawk shot. I mean, they drafted what they needed to, like you said, to just control as much vision as possible, set up for these picks, and again, turn the fights into the favor before they really break out. Turn any potential fight into a 5v4 before anything could really be done. Ooh, hook goes a bit wide there.
Another death sentence attempt coming in from Turtle here, as he is just been doing real well with landing these so far this game, but that one going to end up landing onto a minion just a little bit, and that's going to mean they're just going to likely take a reset here. Not too much left to fight over on the map at this time.
Yeah, I mean, good time to take a reset, too, as we see the pinks coming in for the next Rift Herald coming in under 1:30. And, I mean, this is where you want to start spending that gold that you got from that dragon fight, if you haven't already, and just start to prepare to move that vision over and potentially contest this next Herald. But we might see a fight break out here in the bot lane.
Yeah, Poke once again going to get engaged on. Here comes the Base Breaker to try to pull him on in for the stun, and now he can start getting
There's that damage
going. He's got that Blade of the Ruin King to punish with the percentage health damage, and he's going to be able to start actually really bullying away Poke.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely that damage. I mean, the Blade of the Ruin King making the biggest difference. I mean, Poke, while he's going to be able to sustain back up eventually, you know, through his passive, it's not going to be as quick as it was in the early game, where that damage is just immense now from Dim-Witted Baboon. As we see pinks coming in, looking to the top side of the jungle, I expect to see Ivy Gaming trying to start pushing their way through and trying to set up the control for that next Rift Herald. I mean, second Rift Herald, not necessarily the most contested objective. I mean, it's really only going to be up for about a minute. I mean, they might honestly just look to give it up, as they're really only going to have about under a minute to really try to take it. But we're still going to see vision being contested, and we're just going to still start seeing control of this river.
Yeah, they're sweeping out vision on the side of Ivy Gaming Black, but they aren't really getting too much of it for themselves, and that means they're going to have a little bit of trouble finding out these picks, and they want to be careful that they don't end up biting off more they can chew. If they go for a pick that they don't really actually have the numbers for, and they get collapsed on by the team fighting comp of Glaive Esports Emerald, it's going to go very poorly for them very quickly.
Ooh, and we're actually just seeing Persona. Okay, he's just clearing up the vision. He is going to be spotted. It's likely going to be expected, but a really good hawk shot here is going to let them know that he's kind of alone, and if they really look for a pick here, it might be possible for them to get something. Both top laners do have TP available in the bot lane, so a fight could break out at any moment, but it does look like Actually, yeah, here comes a pick.
Yeah, good use of that vision over the wall. They're just going to put Persona out incredibly low there. They're just going to blow the Vigar ultimate immediately to get him as low as possible, and that's going to give them the opportunity to start up this Herald. The opposing jungler is incredibly low on HP, although he has just gone back on over. He's going to do that Gromp because he knows it's going to heal him, and he's going to smite it as well for an even greater health total. So he is looking to potentially still go in for this engage on the Rift Herald if he has to. Now here comes the poke. There's the doesn't land on anybody, and that's going to be the go button for Persona. He's going to dive on in there with the charge, and he is not actually going to be able to pick up on anybody, but they were able to answer onto City there, as now they are going to chase even farther with the fight. Patient has found a great engage, and there's another one as he dives on forward with the pulverized headbutt combo. Now they're moving on to Evan here, and since they weren't able to pick up a single target, they are just going to end up losing in the 5v5 team fight 2-for-4.
Yeah, and I mean, a little bit of an overextension there by Cinebu. I mean, the rest of his team got, I mean, as soon as that Chach and Crystalero missed out, I think that's what you call it. I mean, you definitely don't overextend and try to pick off a squishy member of the side of Glaive Esports. You definitely don't go for the jinx. I mean, you either look to follow up on the closest target and try to drag it towards your team, or you just kind of call it off. I mean, that's kind of your one window, right? You don't really try to push and kind of salvage that play, and unfortunately that's kind of what we saw. We saw Cindy Boy go really far deep into the backline and kind of ignore that the rest of his team was getting aggressed on by Glaive Esports, and what was looking to be a successful mid game for Ivy Gaming Black has kind of turned on its head as the lead kind of shifts to the other side, and now Glaive Esports is sitting comfortably at a 2K lead.
Yeah, you can't overforce as the side of IV Gaming in this matchup. You're up against the full team fight team comp. You cannot compete with your poke champion or with your pick champions. I don't know why I keep saying poke. You cannot compete with your pick champions if you aren't able to section off a single target and burst him out early on, as you just won't win the fight. But now here is a pick coming in onto Persona. They know that he's all alone here, but that is a fast horse, and he's going to be able to dodge out on the death sentence. Now Patient is here as well. You can see all the members of Glaive, as soon as they see one member of Ivy, they all start grouping up together to make sure they can't get picked, and that's all they really need to do to ensure that they're the more powerful team fight. As they start just posing up against each other in this dragon here, since nobody was caught all alone, it's going to be very difficult for Ivy to take this fight, although here is somebody all alone, as Baboon is going for a big flank here, but he's not going to get picked out any farther, and now is going to be going in for this engage. This is a big 5v5 team fight here. Here comes the big targets from Kakari, and he's gonna just melt right on through everybody. Now here comes through with the showstopper from Set, just dealing ever more damage based on the health of his opponents. Karn going to be taken down as well, as now Persona can chase even farther and try to pick up onto Poke. He's gonna try to kite this one out with his Grasp of the Undying, but he just cannot heal enough up against this tanky horse, and now he's going to be chased out, although he is sustaining up with Happy Hour and slowing down with barrels. Might potentially try to find an escape here, but not going to be able to do so, as Persona is able to take him down, and that is going to be the fourth kill of the team fight, picked up for the side of Glaive.
Yeah, and I mean, Ivy Gaming Black, again, we talk about how much they're trying to force, and I mean, at this point, if your comp can't make what, I mean, if Ivy Gaming's comp can't do what it needs to do, which is to try to turn these number advantage before a fight breaks out, you kind of have to just kind of pull back and maybe not look to take this third, or this potential second Drake and third Drake for your enemy. I mean, it just wasn't set up correctly. I mean, you have really no choice but to try to pick the closest target. One of your carries is on the opposite side of the wall, and you just fought a really bad split fight that just kind of led to your demise, and it pretty much just set you up to give up the Drake, still lose the Drake, lose more than just the Drake in a couple kills, and really again extend this gold lead now for Glaive Esports, now sitting at 4K above, doubling that lead. And we're potentially going to start seeing the setup for potentially this Baron, as Jinx is sitting on 2 items, Orianna sitting on 1, but Zed is sitting on 2 now. They definitely have the damage to take this Baron on another really good fight if they don't lose a number advantage first.
Yeah, certainly the case there. And now I actually do have to tell you, Zymphonic, my League of Legends has crashed, so I'm loading right back on up into the Spectate client here. But I'm gonna need you to pick up in the play-by-play for just a second here, as I have no idea what's going on this map.
Yeah, no problem at all. As we're seeing the plays kind of line up here. We're seeing both teams line up in the mid lane. They're looking to set up pressure here. Let's see Persona here get caught out, but no Welter. Actually, Persona's going to engage with the onslaught of shadows. Turtle's going to get here, but here comes the enchanted crystal arrow. It is going to allow Kakari to pick up wild WH Turtle here, and it is going to be a 1-for-0 for the side of Glaive Esports. It's potentially going to allow him to set up for this Baron, as there's TPs available for both sides, but here comes a potential death push here. Karin landing a good bit of damage, but they're not going to have Skarner or the Vigar really set up for the play here, and it does look like we're just going to take this 1-for-0 1-for-0 for what it is. Neither team is really looking to take much of it, and they're going to let Turtle respawn here and potentially continue to contest this mid lane and try to set up for this Baron in the future.
Yeah, they certainly are here. As now I'm loading on back. Just let me get synced on up with the stream here, and I will be able to resume my role here in this cast. But thank you for covering for me there, Symphonic. I do appreciate it.
Anytime. And I mean, yeah, I mean, as we're looking to see, I mean, that pick was really good for the side of Glaive Esports. I mean, they were able to take a lot of vision control back, but off of these resets, it does look like Ivy Gaming is going to take the opportunity to pick up the Spire, pick up as much vision as they can, and try to take control of this Baron area. But while they're doing that, it does look like Dim-Witted Baboon is going to continue to push this lead that he has onto Poke and be able to start pressuring this inhibitor turret. I mean, right now, it looks like Ivy Gaming is going to be forced back into an opportune spot, maybe looking to set up another death push. It seems to be a staple of their comp right now, but instead, I mean, they were able to pick up a good amount of vision. Their inhibitor turret is safe, but it does look like now that Glaive Esports is going to be able to start taking back a lot of this vision that is going to be unprotected. And it actually looks like we're going to start up the Baron down. It's going down pretty quick, almost down to under 10,000 health now.
Yeah, certainly is here, and now they're going to be moving on here into the river. They got to come and try to respond to this Baron, and there's the Enchanted Crystal Arrow. It is going to end up going wide. Is now Poke looking for the potential pick here, but there are still 3 members of Akuma here to try to defend, or Glaive, rather. Don't know why I said that, as now they're going to see Persona coming on through. He's got the Onslaught of Shadows to try to move through onto Poke and try to do as much damage as he can, but simply City Boo actually going to be able to pick up the opposing AD carry here as a result of their pressing ever forward, and there are no more members of Glaive to try to win out the fight. So Poke going to be able to pick up another shutdown there onto Persona. And now with only 3 members left for Glaive on the map, they're going to be able to move on to Ivy Gaming.
Yeah, but all the while, yeah, onto the Baron, but all the while, I mean, Baboon's pretty much taking their base uncontested. I mean, they're going to force the TP out of Evan with an eye. He's going to be able to hold those inhibitor turrets, but, or I'm sorry, the Nexus turrets, but here comes a potential play now as we're seeing the TP coming in from Dim-Witted Baboon.
Yeah, no, you're going to be going for this fight anyway, and now here comes a huge flash over the wall. Patient and Dim-Witted Baboon just trying to two-man this fight, and they are doing an excellent job of doing so. They're able to group up everybody together and just punish with the pulverized headbutt combo. Now Karn is getting chased on out as well, but they're going to be able to take him down too. Kakari with the backup on his top laner. They are able to take out 3 members in the 3 versus 5 fight at the Baron, and now they're going to try to move on to it themselves.
What a fantastic series of plays from Glaive Esports. I mean, knowing that while the fight wasn't necessarily going in their favor, they didn't blow the TP too early and have Baboon join the fight. Instead, they were able to secure that inhibitor, and they were able to stall that Baron long enough for Baboon to find a really good TP opportunity and pretty much get everything they want. Yes, they lost the initial fight, but they picked up the inhibitor. They were able to pick up some exit kills, and they were able to delay this Baron. And now we're 15 seconds away from the Soul Point Dragon, or the Soul Dragon, and I mean, if you're Glaive Esports, you're in a really good spot. You're up 5k, you're able to back and pick up a couple kills, or a couple items, and you're setting up for this vision control sooner, but oh well. Or I'm sorry, but Baboon might get caught out here.
Yeah, he is going to
Crystal Arrow.
That one out. Now another huge Enchanted Crystal Arrow going to get cleansed out on, and immediately going to fill out with the Impale, which also gets QSS. Knocking on to boost his success. He has all the tools he needs, and now he can just team fight this front to back exactly the way he wants to. He's going to pick up 2 kills already. They're going to pick up a snipe onto Skarner as well. That's 3 members dead just for the Hecarim on the side of Glaive Esports, and they're going to try to push ever forward and get onto the base. There's a teleport in from Kakari on the backside to try to cut off Karn. Now he's forced into a 1v1 with the Jinx. He's going to get taken down as well. That's the ace for the side of Glaive Esports, and off that insane fight and that insane play for boosted success, they're going to be able to close out the series.
Oh, just an unfortunate target selection by Cineboo. I mean, you picked the champion that has 2 ways of getting out of your ulti, both the cleanse and the QSS. And again, you overextend past your team, and your team can't follow. There's no way for them to go past Baboon. There's no way for them to go past the Hecarim and the Alistair. And you go in, you impale your target, but you never get to bring it to the damage dealers. You pretty much just go on a solo mission and you never come back. And I mean, what a fantastic, again, 2 really good series of fights there from Glaive Esports, and they're able to just turn one after another into the end of the game. And I mean, just fantastically played there by Glaive Esports.
Absolutely, they're great play by the side of Boost's success, just able to cleanse on out of everything there, eating up 2 ultimates instantly, and that's the saddest Scorpion I've ever seen, and they're going to be able to close out against it fairly quickly as a result of that. Just a clean team fight win for the side of Glaive Esports, and we said it over and over again throughout the game, Symphonic. If they're able to find these 5v5 fights, they favor Glaive Esports so much. They need to be finding the picks on the side of ID Gaming Black, and they did pretty much the opposite of that on to boost his success in that last fight.
Yeah, I mean, you said it best. I mean, if they are able to group up before these objectives happen, if they never give Ivy Gaming the chance to find those picks and turn the fights into their favor, there's just no way that Ivy Gaming can do that. We saw that with Dragon number 4, where Glaive Esports got on the Soul Point. They weren't able to find the pick, and instead, Glaive Esports were able to engage and pick up a fight. And then we saw it again here at Soul Point. I mean, they weren't able to find the pick. They forced themselves into the Dragon area after Glaive has already set up or established vision. And they pretty much just lost the game off of 2 back-to-back forced engages or just forced fights. And man, I mean, it was looking really good for Ivy Gaming in the early game, but I mean, Glaive Esports knew how to handle this pick comp, and they knew what they needed to do, and they did it in fantastic fashion.
Yeah, and also got to give huge props to Dimwitted Baboon and Patient there in that second to last fight where their team had already been taken down. They had lost Boost to Success, they had lost Persona, but they're able to turn around the fight 3 versus 5 along with Kakari at the Baron just off of a crazy flank engage from the side of the set and just constantly able to keep them CC'd down with the headbutt combos coming in from the Alistair. Patient played this entire game incredibly well and was able to guarantee that his team fight comp was going to be the one to come out on top as he was constantly landing multi-man pulverizes, which were just showing that the side of Ivy Gaming Black cannot compete in the 5v5.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Fantastic plays by all of Glaive Esports. I mean, from both teams. I mean, both teams definitely gave us one of the closest matchups we've had on stream so far. And I mean, both these teams, I mean, Ivy Gaming's premier match, I mean, unfortunately, you know, their first loss, but I mean, they have so many games left in this season. And then Glaive Esports taking their second win of the league so far. So, I mean, they're definitely looking to be one of the strongest teams in their division so far.
They certainly are, and you know, this is one of the toughest opponents that they were really going to have to face off against. We talked about how highly rated Ivy Gaming's Black's players are. Now they're going to be able to go up 2-0, the side of Glaive Esports are in their division. They are looking pretty good in this league thus far, and they're off to the best start you can get as sitting at 2-0 series record.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think I said it last week, if I'm Ivy Gaming, I wouldn't be too discouraged. I mean, you're playing against really strong teams here, and as long as you can take something from these games, and I mean, they had a lot of times where they were playing their comps to their strengths and playing them well. So, I mean, these are definitely good games to rewatch, relearn, and come back stronger for your second match later this week, and then your third match for next week.
Yeah, really did see a great look come out of Ivy Gaming Black, especially in the game they won today. So definitely nothing to be too upset about here, and definitely excited to see them throughout more of the league. But that is going to do it for us tonight. We are going to have more LHG streams throughout the week, so pay attention to LHG on Twitter to see when those will be. And we'll be right back with more Ultimate League next week with me and Zymphonic again. But for this evening, that is going to do it for us. Thank you, everybody, for tuning on in, and have a nice night.
Have a great night, guys.